I want to talk about tonight, I want to talk about tuning for speed. So I got some notes. So first of all, power. It's a physical, defined physical, a thing is torque times RPM. Okay. So RPM is really easy. It's your right foot and how far it's pressed down on the throttle. So RPM is easy. Torque, the amount of horsepower you can extract per cc per cylinder. That's what the magic is. Now the V8 guys who put a V8 into their MGB
Yeah,
um,
like
will walk
too.
around and see, I got to use that mute all button. Um, will walk around, puffed up and say there's no replacement for displacement. Well, duh. I mean, if you've got an engine that's 3,000, 3 liter versus an engine that's 1 liter. I mean, obviously the 3 liter engine is going to win. I mean, all other things being equal. I mean, yeah, but the incremental changes in our cars, at least in the MGA and MGBs, from 1500 to 1800, 300 cc's may seem like a lot. If the doctor's got it in a syringe and he's going to push it into you, it looks like a whole lot. But if you get it in a bottle out of a machine, it really isn't that much. So um, your RPM is limited by the balance in the engine, right? There on the tachometers. There's a warning. There's an orange section, just like it's street light. Warning, warning. Go here with caution. And then there's a red zone. It says stay out. That's based on the factory balance and the guys working the warranty desk. Okay, so that's why those numbers are there. But if you balance your engine, you can make it go considerably faster than than it's designed to go in our cars. But that's race car preparation. You're not going to drive around town at 8,000 RPM. So I'm not talking about race car preparation here. I'm just talking about street cars. Um, Power is the same. We refer to it as horsepower. You can refer to it as watts. Watts, that's a measure of power. It is energy. And energy is work over time. A certain amount of work over a certain amount of time is a certain amount of power. Mass distance cubed over time cubed. So it's a very definable thing. Most everybody, when Carl Heidemann and I had these sessions, tuning for speed, so many years ago, at the shop, Carl would stand up and he'd say, "Okay, we're gonna take a poll here." We'd have a dozen guys. Who ships at 2,500? And a hand would go up. Who ships at 3,000? A bunch of hands would go up. Who ships at 3,500? A couple of hands. Who ships at 4 grand? One. Carl says, "Well, here, I'm going to tell you the secret right now. You can go home. You got your whole money out of this session. Change gears at 5,000 RPM. I mean, just run it right up. I mean, the faster the engine's going to a point around 5,000 RPM, the more power you're going to get out of it. So just rev it up more. Just use the power there. Use the power available from the RPM. I was at a motorcycle museum in Denver, Colorado at a British Motor Trade Association conference. Oh my gosh, at least 10 years ago, longer ago than that. And we had a dinner at a big car museum and something got screwed up. And we ended up in a motorcycle museum touring that, which I could have cared less about. But up on the wall, as I was searching for something that might interest me, was a fold apart diagram of a Honda engine and gearbox, all condensed into something smaller than a shoebox, right? And I'm looking down at the bottom right hand corner of the poster, and it says 35 horsepower at 15,000 RPM. Well, again, that's torque times RPM. They've got the pistons only moving that far, so you don't have a lot of piston speed. It's you can rev that thing up. It isn't going to come apart like our engines do with a 3.5 inch stroke in the piston. So RPM is really important. Whereas shift is really important. Now, almost all race car mechanics and drivers will tell you that the most important part of the car, of a race car, is the nut behind the steering wheel. Get it, Vern? The nut behind the steering wheel. So it all comes down to you and how you drive. That's really critical. So anyway, how can we measure how much power your engine's got? Is that how can you do that? I mean, is it the same as all the other 1963 MGBs? Is it the same as every other MGA 1500? Is it the same as all the other TCs? Compared to what? Well, you can race, but if you're going to race somebody else, you better know what you're doing, and uh, you'd better have a pretty open road. I'm not suggesting that you race at all. This is real dangerous. But if you want to know what your car is compared to somebody else's, and if you really want to see who's fastest, switch drivers. Because the other guy, he wants to win. He doesn't care. He'll blow your engine up because you've already told him you don't care. Like let's see who's fastest. So that's one way. That's not rational to race somebody else on the road. You can check your mileage. Your gasoline mileage has a lot to say about how well your car is tuned. A lot to say about it. You can read the spark plugs, and look for that tan colored. I had in that constant contact. Notice that I sent out a bunch of spark plugs lined up. And they're all bone white, way too lean, and you don't want them too black. You want the look just right. But just out on the road, if you're getting 25 miles per gallon, you're doing fair. It's working out okay for you. If you're getting 30 miles per gallon, oh my gosh, I challenge you to claim that's been a real figure over a period of time. Most of our cars are not that efficient. Carl says you cannot feel less than 5 horsepower by the seat of your pants. So if you go out all day and clean your car and polish it and make it look absolutely beautiful, it's quieter and it runs better. So if you go out all day and tune it, of course it's going to run better, even if it doesn't. It's just going to feel like it runs better. But Carl says you can't really feel less than about 5 horsepower, just gut wise, tuning up the car and then going on to the next one. So you can do a measure, but this is a two-person operation, and it is somebody's got to drive. The driver drives. Driver isn't doing anything else but driving. Somebody else is sitting in the passenger seat. He's got a tachometer that you've hardwired or snapped onto your distributor, looking at the tach and measure maybe how long it takes to go between 3,500 and 55 RPM, or 3 grand and 5 grand, something like that in third gear. And make a couple runs, make two or three runs, make 10 runs, whatever you want to do. Throw out the highest and lowest, average the rest, whatever. But don't shift. Don't do a 0 to 60 because you're shifting, and each time you shift, and if you miss a shift, you wreck the gearbox, and you're not really after the shift anyway. And you want it fast off the line, or you're just looking for power in the upper bands, which is usually what people are looking for. Then that will do it. And you can go into an online calculator, but what you're doing is comparing the momentum of the car at 3,500 and how long it takes to change the momentum up to 5,500 RPM. And you've got to be able to calculate that back into miles per hour, but that's easily done. And then you can go to an online calculator and figure that out. Or you can email me and I'll send you the formula without having to know Isaac Newton's um, intense math, whose name just escapes me. What did Isaac Newton come up with? Come on, calculus.
Calculus.
Yeah, calculus. Yeah, my dentist told me that was something on my teeth. So anyway, we always go back to our um, easiest, cheapest, least expensive, easiest, fastest, and least expensive alternative. So we did a tuning for speed class at University Motors, I don't know, 15 years ago. We had a guy drive from Hershey, Pennsylvania, and he is 800 miles away. He drove out here. The first thing we did was make the car run. It was a 67B, I think. Make it run as well as it possibly could, the way it's set up before we start adding stuff to it. And so we checked the timing. The timing was at 27 degrees before top dead center, max. It should be 32. We changed it to 32. We took it to the dynamometer the next day, which is not unlike timing the car between 3,000 and 5,000 RPM. And it was an accelerating drum type of dyno. And we got 60, I think 62 horsepower out of the rear end. Is that all? Yep, that's all. So then we set the timing back to where he had it before, which is 27, and we lost 5 horsepower. So 5 horsepower on 62, that's almost 10%. So let me tell you, doing a good tune-up to your car is the easiest, fastest, and least expensive first step that you can take to making your car run better. If you really want it to go fast, you can spend a whole lot of money on it, port and polish, raise the compression. The most we ever got out of an MGB engine at the rear wheels was 75 horsepower. But if you bolt on a supercharger you can buy from Moss, you get 90 horsepower, just like that. So the silver bullet at a platinum price is the supercharger. You don't need to rebuild your engine. You don't have to do anything to it. It's going to make such a difference. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So the first thing that I want to do is talk about the tune-up. That is after we talk about getting the car as light as we can. You're accelerating a mass. And the less that mass weighs, the faster the car is going to accelerate. It's going to accelerate faster if you're in it by yourself versus another passenger. Okay, that's easy. We had a guy here in town who had a race. They used to have a race back in the olden days up a hill at a county park. And one guy had this tinfoil car. It had a tubular frame and a big V8 engine, and he was about as big as a refrigerator. Somebody went over his house one day and said, "Charlie, what are you doing?" Because here he is with a hole saw drilling holes in the frame. He says, "Well, I'm lightening up the car." And they said, "Geez, Charlie, no, go look in the mirror. Figure out how to lighten the car some other way." It turns out that was his brilliant moment, and he did end up losing a whole lot of weight. But it's get the car to weigh as little as you can, and also get the wheels as light as you can. There's if you got great huge tires,
Ooh,
great and wire wheels. Oh well, you're not going to
right.
change from wire to disc, but disc wheels do weigh less. So it takes a lot of energy to spin up 4 tires, and aside from accelerating the mass. So the smaller tire you have, the faster you can accelerate. Not the smaller in diameter, just the thinner, the narrower, the less mass there is in that tire. I had a customer who fiddled with his wheels, made them really exotic. They weren't they didn't have spikes out on them like some of the stuff you see right now. Not quite like that, but each he'd welded a lot of weight to each wheel. And I mean, he didn't care. He drove around town and they look cool. But if you want to go fast, you can't have heavy wheels. You got to have light wheels. Absolutely. So let's talk about the tune-up. You can go online. I pulled off this tune-up for SU carburetors, right? There's HS and there's HIF carburetors. But I just want to go through this. When I get done with this, I'll tell you what little things you can buy to make a difference. And I've got a longer list of things that don't make a difference. So when you're doing the tune-up, the first thing you do, the most important part of the tune-up is consistency. You want each piston to do the same as each other piston in rotation. You want the valves to open at the same time. You want the compression ratio to be the same. You want the spark plug wire resistance to be the same on each one. You want each carburetor acting the same as the other one. You don't want the engine to fight itself. Okay. You can't have two cylinders that are putting out, I don't know, 20 horsepowers per cylinder, and then the other two are putting out 15. No, you want them all putting out the same. That's the goal here. So we've got preliminaries. And when you go through the preliminaries, you want to make sure that the engine warms up quickly within 5 minutes or 5 miles. The car should be at operating temperature. And what temperature is that? Around 195 degrees. Winter, summer, all the time, about 195 degrees. It likes to run up there. Gasoline is an issue. You can waste money and buy high octane gasoline for a car that doesn't need it. Personally, I do not believe it will hurt the car, but it's just a waste of money. On the other hand, if you're using too low of an octane, you can get spark knock, preignition, detonation, and that will damage the engine. I run in my MGA. I got about a 10-to-1 engine in that, and I run the highest octane I can buy. But that gasoline only lasts for so long too. The volatile components boil away real quickly. And what you put in the tank in December is not what you are pulling out of the tank in July. So it does fail while it's sitting in the tank. Your positive crankcase ventilation system, or even the engine ventilation system. There's an engine ventilation system all the way back to who had the Tickford, the 38 Tickford. There's something on there. There's an oil draft tube. There's something or other to vent the engine to get the fumes out of the engine to help the fumes escape. By the time it's a TC and TD, there's a pipe about as big around on the inside as your index finger to allow all kinds of all the blow-by to get out of the car. Starting in 1964, we've got a positive crankcase ventilation system that traps the blow-by and runs it back through the engine. It's not a bad system. Don't throw it away. Even on a 1980 MGB with two charcoal canisters, an anti-run-on valve, it's fine. It doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't suppress nor does it enhance the way the car runs, but it does keep the atmosphere clean. So it's a nice thing. It's a nice thing to have. The evaporative loss system. Just this is to make sure that the anti-run-on valve works, but the evaporative loss system are all the hoses associated with the fuel tank and the charcoal canisters and so forth. Doesn't have a hoot to do with how it runs unless something's plugged up. And you want to have clean oil and filter if necessary. What does if necessary means? If it's dirty, if it's got gasoline in it. If you've got gasoline in the oil and you try to tune the car up, it's going to draw some of that gasoline out of the oil and burn it up through the PCV system. And then you're going to adjust the carburetor's lean to account for this little bit of gasoline. And then when you're out at 60 miles an hour, it's going to run really lean because it's not getting the gasoline that it should. Next thing you're going to do is check the compression just to make sure it's okay. When you go in I was in the doctor's office this morning. I'm a boomer, so I get to go to the doctor lots of times a year. What's the first thing they do to you? But after they insult you by putting you on the scale, they put the wrap around your arm, and check your blood pressure. It's the same thing checking the compression in the engine. It's really easy. Just go at it, get it. It should be consistent. Well, it's never perfect. Well, that's not true. Sometimes it is. Maybe it's 128 all the way across. How can that possibly be? More often than not, it's jiggling up and down a little bit, having to do with the condition of the valves, the size of the valves, the fact that the engine was never set up correctly to make sure that the combustion chamber and the valves and everything were sitting with exact to cause an exact amount of displacement in the cylinder head. And then there's carbon buildup, there's all that kind of stuff, but it must be within 10%. That's the rule. Now, you're at 11%. What are you going to take the car apart? Probably not. But if you're getting a compression that's like 130, 130, 80, 130, nope, it ain't going to run right. After you've adjusted the valves and it hasn't changed, time to take the head off and repair it. But you're looking for consistency, always consistency. So you're looking for the compression. Then you're gonna clean or change the spark plugs. You've got to use the correct spark plugs in an MGB. They're N9Ys, Champion N9Ys, a three-quarter inch reach with a turbo tip. And then the 9 is the heat range. When the MGB first came out, they were still using the N5s from the MGA, but they went to the N9Ys. That's only the first couple hundred of them. The Midget 1500 uses N12Ys. So each engine requires a different one. And when you start to switch around, I don't know. I think one of them is BPES. That's one of the popular plugs, but I always use Champion. And you want to gap those plugs at 35 thousandths before you put them back in when you're all done getting this done. You want to torque the head and adjust the valves. You want to make sure that each valve is opening at exactly the same time as the other. And so what are you looking for here? Are you looking for when you slide the feeler gauge between the top of the valve and the rocker? Should it be tight? Should it be loose? It should all feel the same. I just can't believe it makes a whit of difference if your valves are set at 16 or 14, but they should all be the same. So that's their standard settings. If you've had your engine built, it comes with information about the cam, tells you to set the cam up at a certain gap. It's usually pretty wide. Some of the cams, like 19 and 22, so you get a greater clattering out of the engine bay than you do with a factory cam. Anyway, torque the head, adjust the valves, start the engine, and watch all the valves work. Put your head on the fender and look back and forth. Get the RPM down as low as it'll go. 600, the tick over. Get the tick over as slow as you can go, and just watch all the valves working. Now, the cam guys will tell you that if the cam is worn more than 10 thousandths of an inch, it's time to change the cam. The rocker arm ratio is about 1.5 to 1. It's 1.39, I think, to 1, but about 1.5 to 1. The cam lift is a quarter of an inch. Actually, it's quarter of an inch. So you multiply that, and that means the valve is only moving 3/8 of an inch, which isn't very much. And you can't tell if one's moving 10 thousandths or 20 thousandths or 50 thousandths more than another. So if you can see that there's a difference in how much each valve is moving by having it run slowly and just looking across it back and forth as it's idling. Of course, it's spattering oil. T-types, oh my God. Get some blankets around or put them on the fenders and stuff, because that's Splash City. But a B just sort of dribbles out. And of course, the slower it's going, the less the pressure, the less the spattering. But just watch all those valves as they open and close. And if you can see one that isn't moving as much as another, hey, that camshaft, to use the common breakfast expression, is toast. And the car's never going to run well. It'll idle well, run around town well, perhaps, but it won't run at high speed. You can't get the speed out of it. And all the cylinders are working against each other because one of them isn't doing as much work as the other. So recheck the compression, put it all back together, take a break, wait till next weekend, or dive into the next part of it, which is ignition. And in the trade, we say almost all carburetor problems are ignition problems in it because it's the truth, right? The engine is huge, right? I mean, the engine's huge, big, tall, thick, great big piece of equipment. The carburetors are an SU carburetor is uh, two fists, maybe 2 fists big, 3 fists big. There's two of them. On the mid-range MGAs, but the distributor is only this big. It's only as big as your fist, and it's the nervous system of the car. It is what makes the spark, times the spark, and sets the rate of advance. It is critical. This thing is like unbelievably critical. And if you buy a new one, it comes from our favorite country, and who knows what you're buying? I mean, who knows what you're buying? So don't send your distributor out if you got any questions about it at all. If you don't, it's wintertime. These guys need the business. Um, Send it to Jeff Schlemmer, Advanced Distributor in Minnesota, or to Rob Medinsky at British Vacuum Unit in Connecticut or New Hampshire.
New Hampshire.
Thanks, Glenn. But you can find them both on the web. Advanced Distributor or British Vacuum Unit. Use whichever one. Now remember that the MGB runs the best from 1963 through 1967. That's where it's making the most power. In 1968, we had to contend with the fact that it had to pollute correctly. So our power goes down. Between 1968 and 1980, 12 years, there are probably 10 different distributors. So you can put the original distributor back in your 1974 MGB and it works great. If it's rebuilt, works great. But what works better is that 40897 original distributor that was used from 1963 through 1967 here through 1974 in England. And then the body of the carburetor changed from a 25D distributor to a 45D distributor, and not one part is the same. Everything changes. The cap, the rotor, the points, the body, everything changes, but the advance curve stays the same. And that's a 41427. Used to buy them from, everybody had them for sale, the Euro spec MGB distributor. So whether it's a 40897 or the 41, what did I just say? I can't remember now. The later distributor, those will give you the correct advance curve. So that's what makes your car run faster. And at this juncture, what difference does it make? Unless, of course, you're in California, and then you can't use anything like that after, help me out, Pat, after 1975? What's the cutoff? Pat Garrett, are you on?
Yeah, I think you're right, John. 75, I think.
About 75, and then you must have by law, you must have the original equipment stuff in place. But if you want the car to run better, it's that 41427. That's the second one, or the 40897, the earlier one. So the spark plugs, we've already talked about those, that they're all gapped the same, 35 thousandths. They're clean. They don't have to be new, but to clean a spark plug, you've either got to use carbon tetrachloride, can't find that anymore, or you've got to burn the carbon off with a propane torch, or you got to wait till your wife isn't at home and then put them in the oven on self-clean and bake the carbon off them, or sandblast them, or just buy new ones. Just because the spark plug is new doesn't mean it's good. Should be good, and 99.999% of the time they are good, but every now and then there's a faulty one. The spark plug wires have got to have the same amount of resistance within 10% or so. Obviously, a resistor wire that's twice as long as the next one theoretically should have twice the resistance. So you got to make the short ones longer. You can't make the long ones shorter, but you want to have the same length. You want to make sure that the cap and the rotor are in really good condition. And then you got to get it timed correctly. And the timing on all of our cars, I don't know about the 38. That engine is so early, I just don't even have a clue. But everything else, from from Skip's the 39 TB all the way up through 1980, the timing is 32 degrees at full mechanical advance, vacuum disconnected. So T-types don't have to worry about, there's no vacuum on T-types. But beginning with the MGA, you got to disconnect the vacuum to set the timing. 32 degrees before. And what a difference it makes. Oh my gosh. But um, you can time them sometimes they come back from the rebuilder, the distributor rebuilder, and they tell you set it at 14 degrees at 1400 RPM. Okay, all right. Well, that works for a year, and then the springs start to get weak. And then the distributor isn't working quite like it should. But if you want it to be producing as much power, the engine as much power as you possibly can at speed, up at highway speed when you're doing 50 miles an hour or more, where it's all the way advanced, you want it to be at 32. That's where it's supposed to be, not 28, like the guy from Hershey, Pennsylvania. His was at 27 and lost 5 horsepower. So it's not 27, not 28, 32. Some people argue with that and say, well, it works a little better at 33 or a little better at 31, but the go-to number is 32. If you got a dynamometer, you're better than I am, and you can experiment with this stuff. You've got a wide band oxygen sensor welded into a bung in your exhaust. You can watch what's going on. You shouldn't. You should be driving. Somebody can watch what's going on. Some of that stuff innovate plugs into your computer and keeps track of it. It'll give you a readout of what your air fuel mixture is, and that is a wonderful way to monitor how well your car is carbureted and how well it's running.
Hey, John, do you plug the vacuum hose when
You
you're
don't
doing
you
that?
don't have to. No.
Oh,
You
okay. All right. Thank you.
you could. There's two types of vacuum. There's ported vacuum that goes into the rear carburetor, and then there's manifold vacuum. And if you leave the manifold vacuum disconnected, it makes a great big difference at idle because you're sucking in fresh air, a lot of fresh air at idle. But if you're doing 60 miles an hour and the throttle discs are part way open, that little tiny little weeny leak isn't going to make one whit of difference. So, so.
So John, at what RPM do you set them at
Well, it's
32?
usually up around 3,000-4,000 RPM.
That high?
Oh yeah,
At
oh yeah.
4,000?
You've got almost always you've got to use a dial back timing light, and so you hook that up. Those don't work on straight wire; those only work on resistor wire. And you set the dial back timing light at 32, and then until 1972, or with all the BMC midgets with a Mowag drive, you're on your belly like a snake watching the timing mark down at 6 o'clock while your associate revs the engine up and better be following what you're telling him to do. I always go like up, faster, faster. Of course, you're yelling, but you can't hear anything because the engine's roaring, faster, faster. And then if he makes it go faster and the timing stops, that's as fast as it goes. The 72 through 80s are really nice MGBs. You can lean over the bonnet. You got the light trained right down on the timing mark. You reach across and rev it up, and the timing mark comes up and then just stops because That's full mechanical advance. So 32 degrees. Doesn't matter if it's a TB or a 1980 MGB or an MGC. It's all the same. V8s and twin cams, they're different. The cylinder heads are different, but all the rest of our cars are 32.
John, you didn't mention anything about the latest, from I think 1979 or 80, they had this other version of electronic ignition on the carburetors. What do you know about them? Are they,
They're great. They're great. It's about the size of a pack of cigarettes, twice as big as that. How big was that, Dad? Underneath the coil in a wire that goes down, plugs in to the distributor. Those things haven't failed. The earlier systems, those are all done. None of those are left as a rule. It's every now and then you'll hear somebody still has one working, but they all failed.
they all fail? What about, what,
And that's just making the spark. That's got nothing to do with the timing. Okay,
Right.
got nothing to do with the timing. It only has to do with how you actually make the spark. And the rebuilders, both Schlemmer and Medinsky, do not like electronic ignition. First of all, they can't work with the later model distributors, the 45s. They only work with the 25Ds, so they don't work with any of the Chinese knockoffs of the 45s. And they don't like the protonics. They like the points.
Hey, John, Gary Greenspoon, Victoria.
Yeah.
For some reason, I don't know why I'm upside down, but that doesn't matter. I missed the first half an hour, but I just caught you saying that your van's at 32, but only works with resistor wire. How do I know if I have a resistor wire or not?
Oh, let's see. If you can expose the wire in what year and model do you have?
A 1980.
Oh, you got resistor wire for sure. Any
Well,
any set of wires you buy from Napa, or any supplier are all resistor wires. They're all resistor wires. Only the T types had straight wire. The MGAs had straight wire with a little resistor that you screwed on to the end of it. So from I don't know, 65, 68 MGBs onwards, they're all resistor wires, and anything you buy today is resistor wire. So
could I not measure the ohms on that?
absolutely you can.
And what-
Absolutely you can.
What are the ohms?
Well, it's either zero if it's straight wire or it's something greater. And if it's greater, it should be within about 10% of each other. So I would expect figures somewhere between, I don't know, 4,000 and 8,000 ohms. Around
Okay,
there.
thank you very much.
Okay.
Hey, John, real quick, since you mentioned disconnecting the vacuum, I understand that the vacuum is only for when you let off and go back to idle. What's the purpose of the vacuum on the distributor?
Mileage and drivability.
Is
So,
it functional at speed?
it sometimes is. When you there are two types of vacuum. One's ported, one's manifold. That changes between just a minute, between 71 and 72. 72 and newer, it's all ported vacuum. Prior to that, excuse me, 72 and newer is all manifold vacuum. So the vacuum is greatest at idle, and then the other vacuum is greater when the throttle disc, when you're moving real fast and the throttle disc starts to close, and there's a Venturi effect because the hole is right where the throttle disc is on the inside of the carburetor. Medinsky can take your HIF carburetors, rear HIF carburetor, put it on his jig, drill it to put a little tit into it so that you can use the 40897 distributor with HIFs.
He ported my carburetor, John,
Okay.
and then set up my distributor for the 40897.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
What'd that cost, Mark? Just offhand.
It's been about 2 years. I want to tell you, I could be wrong. I want to tell you probably about 200, and I think
That's
he
what I
charged
had
me
up my
another,
hand. Yep,
and
okay,
he charged me, I think, another 50 to port the carburetor. And
okay.
I sent him the wrong carburetor in my I sent him the front one, and I called him. He said, "Don't worry, it works off the front too." So he
It
ported
works
that.
just the same, but yeah, yeah, it's just protocol. Yeah, funny. So anyway, we're talking about the ignition system. Gary Greenspoon said, what about the resistance in the wire? You're looking for consistency in the wire, consistency in the spark plug gap, consistency in the spark plugs. You want to make sure the coil is working okay. How can you tell if it's working okay? Well, you can take the low tension connections and wiggle them. If they're loose, it's not going to work okay all the time. So tighten those up. And then if you want to check and see what kind of spark you're getting out of the coil, all you got to do is spin the engine over with the wire out of the cap, and hold it against the coil or the dipstick or your kid's hand if you want to surprise them, and spin the engine over, and you get a nice spark, like that long. That's if you're getting just a little weeny little spark, like from an original coil off a TD, hey, you haven't got enough spark. So you want to change the coil.
Do you count the resistance of the spark plug in the whole equation?
No,
Wire plus spark plug,
no, because
Are
the spark plugs are all the same. We
aren't
hope.
they resistor type? Resistor type versus
Yes.
non.
Yes. Yep. But that's okay. That's
Oh,
right.
so it's okay to put resistors with a 5K wire.
Yes. Yes.
It does. Okay. It seems to me it would add up. It would be cumulative, but
It is, but I think even if it's 20,000 ohms, it's okay. I mean, it's still going to work. The spark is still going to pass through. So,
gotcha. Okay. Yep.
but it's not uncommon on resistor wires to check them, and it's like 8,000, 9,000, 11,000, 8,500, infinite. Because one of there's been a break inside one, and it's arced out, and the spark will still jump through there, but you're looking for consistency in everything you possibly do.
So one more thing, John. It seems to me that to get the biggest spark, you'd use zero resistance wire. Why do we use resistance? Is it just because some people have radios?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you want to listen to AM radio while you're driving down the road, right? You don't want that zoom in there that you get from the generator or the inside of the alternator. By 1980, there's a capacitor in the back of the alternator. There's one on the positive side of the coil. There's one on the fuel pump, and there's one on the voltage stabilizer. So you don't get those annoying clicks.
So if you don't do radios, do you get any improvement by
No.
getting rid of the
Nope,
resistance?
there's no improvement.
And then who cares?
There's no
On an,
improvement. There's no improvement.
an an electronic flashing unit will also be affected by just
Sure.
wires, not resistive wires.
Sure, sure. So if you're listening to AM radio and you're looking for clicks and zizzes and interference, yep, you can go all kinds of places. But that's why it was there originally. Anyway, once we're done with the ignition, then we can go over to the carburetors. And the most important thing is that the float heights are the same, carburetor to carburetor, and that the rate of fall of the suction chambers in the pistons is the same. So that when you're running the same air through each carburetor, they're both lifted the same amount. One isn't up here, which means that you're going to get a different amount of fuel mixed with the air. You want that to be consistent. So, you want the carburetors to be clean, but you want the float heights to be the same. You're looking for consistency, and you want the drop to be the same. So I think maybe I've done that before. If I haven't, maybe I'll do it in the next Zoom, or sometime soon is do a drop test on a piston, but you can look in your workshop manual, shows you how to do it. You got to cover up the two air holes in the bottom. I just use masking tape, get the carburetor real clean, take the AUC 8113 or 8114 damper out of the top and push the pistons all the way up and see how long it takes them to move down the length of the suction chamber. And if they're grossly different, one's 2 seconds, one's 9 seconds, you switch them to the other ones. And now it's 4 seconds and 5 seconds. So that's still not perfect, but it's as close as you can get. So anyway, that you're after consistency. That's it. And you want to make sure that the air cleaners are clean, because if there's any restriction to getting air through the air cleaners, then the mixture is going to be rich, and it's going to be a lot different at speed than it is at lower RPM. It'll run fine at lower RPM because it's able to get plenty of air through that paper sieve that's designed to pull out particulates. But if it's dirty, oh my gosh. So anyway, that's it. I mean, that you go through the complete tune-up. It's emissions, engine, ignition, fuel. I've got it on the website. You can download the form. There's a form for T types, one for A's, a form for HS and HIF, and a one for Stromberg. And it's always the same thing. And this is your first step to making your car run more powerfully, is to make it run as well as it possibly can in its present configuration. Once you're done with that, and let's say you're not satisfied, then I got to find my notes here. Here we go. Then we have what does work and what doesn't work, as far as things you can buy out of catalogs, add-ons, stuff like that. So first of all, I already mentioned this, and I've been backed up, by getting the correct distributor. Absolutely, positively. That is so critical. The next thing you want to have on the car, either make sure they're still on it in the case of an MGB, or add them in the case of an MGA, are stub stacks, the radius inlet to the carburetor. In the case of an MGB air cleaner, that's the aluminum piece that fits up against the carburetor and has that radius. Air does not like a 90-degree. It wants to roll. It wants to smoothly transform from one direction to another. MGAs do not have that. So, you can buy aftermarket. Who did I just see? I just saw somebody. They had these beautiful, beautiful chrome air cleaners on their MGB. Oh my gosh, they're embossed. They say MG on them. They're just as cool as you can get. But they suck because they don't have the radius in them. You lose 2 horsepower. That isn't very much. Well, on 60 horsepower, it's almost 10%. So it's a consideration. So you want to have that radius. You can get stub stacks and put them inside the stub stacks. Those are expensive. Those are $80 now. Is there more? I don't know in the catalog. Anyway, you've got to have TR6s don't use them. Midgets don't use them. Midget 1500s don't use them. Stromberg carburetors don't use them. But in the case of an MGB, dual SUs, if you take them off, you lose 2 horsepower. How do I know? Because Carl Heidemann, who years ago, when he was a college kid, worked for me, and he's had his own shop, Eclectic Motorworks in Holland, Michigan, and he's done at least 1,200 individual pulls on a dynamometer, and he's used every combination of aftermarket stuff that you can find. So it's either a measurable change or not a measurable change. Okay. By taking those stub stacks off an MGB, it's a measurable change of 2 horsepower. It's dramatic. So what doesn't work? Okay. Big bore exhaust. I mean, help me out. Of course it would work, right? I mean, take your exhaust manifold. Take your exhaust manifold and have it jet hot coated so it's smooth on the inside. No, no, do better than that. Send it off and have it extrude honed. At the extrude honing place, they push a beach's worth of sand through the inside of this thing over the course of a day, some sort of sand and water slurry, and it go not mirror smooth. It doesn't go mirror smooth, but almost. And then you have it jet hot coated. Oh my gosh, look at it. It was all rough on the inside before, and now it's all smooth like glass. Not a measurable difference. Okay. So you got an exhaust. You got an exhaust on original T-type, 1.25 inches. It's like that big around, a little tiny thing, And I see some MGBs with these great big, great big exhausts, and all they do is bang on the underside of the car and get caught on speed bumps and in your brother-in-law's driveway, and it doesn't make one iota of difference if you've got a big bore exhaust or not. It's counterintuitive, but it's the truth. Spark plugs. You can have bad spark plugs, but you can't have better spark plugs. Okay. You can have good or you can have bad, but you can't have better. There isn't such a thing. They either work or they don't work. I was on MG Experience a long time ago, and this guy goes, they're big argument about spark plugs. And this guy goes, well, I know split fire plugs work better because they got two electrodes, right? So there's twice the chance of the spark getting there and so forth. He said, I know they work better because my car ran like shit before, and I put those split fires in, it ran great. And I'm thinking, well, if you just put a new set of N9Ys in there, it would have run great. I mean, one of your plugs is fouled out. So you can't get better plugs. You just can't. Nor can you get better spark plug wires. There isn't such a thing. Either it takes the electricity to the plug or it doesn't. You can't be better. You can, oh my gosh, I've seen spark plug wires with shields on them and atomic fire injector, all the great advertising, 10% more power. It's like truth. No, it just doesn't work. It's not measurable. Okay, it's not measurable. Ignition coil. Now you can get the wrong coil on the car. There's no question about that because there are two different ignition coils used on MGs. All MGs use just a 12-volt coil with about a 3 to 3.5 ohm primary resistance, except 75 through 79, and they have a 1.5 ohm primary resistance. So if you use the 75 through 79 coil on one of the other cars, you get a spark that's twice as long. And the points burn up in about 3 miles because you're running too much current through the points to support that spark. On the other hand, if you run a 12-volt coil where you're supposed to have the 6-volt coil, you run the 3 ohm coil where you're supposed to have the 1.5 ohm coil, you're going to get half the spark. Now there's a problem. Okay, it still works, but not as well. Not as well. And you can have some misfiring. You can't get a better coil. You can get a worse coil. You can't get worse. Cold air boxes. I see I don't ever argue with anybody. They bought them, they've installed them and everything, but you got a piece of tubing like that's ribbed. I mean, I don't know. I've never done any experimentation with that length of ribbed tubing to see how much air gets through there. But the fact that it's ribbed and not smooth, oh my gosh! I mean, there's all kinds of impediment to moving that air, and the cold air doesn't make a whit of difference. It theoretically, oh my gosh, it does. But a cold air box is of no help. And I've seen them with the tubes, run way around the back of the bonnet and down into the front. At idle and slow RPMs, it's okay, but it can't breathe better at high RPM. I had an MD with a 75 or 76 MGB his wife had been stepping out on him, so he's getting pretty intense. MDs do, and so we went out. We put dual carburetors on his car, and we put those little tin air cleaners on it with the little tiny foam air filters, and went out and drove it on the expressway. And I said, well, let's just take the element out of that. Let's just take the front cover off and see what a difference it makes. Oh my God, he got the thing up to like 105. Scared the shit out of me driving on the expressway. No front anti-sway bar. Oh my gosh, this thing MGB's pitching and rolling. Anyway, it ran a lot faster because of the air cleaners. So you can have dirty air cleaners that restrict the flow, but even if you buy the K&N $100 elements, and if you're going to buy this, you got to use the AAA needles because so much air goes through. No, you just use it. If you're putting them in an HIF, you're still using ABD needles. So it's the air cleaner itself is can be restrictive. You do not want it restrictive, but you get to a point in it you can't get any better. Okay, just in the same vein, putting bigger carburetors on the car doesn't make it go better. That's counterintuitive. Carburetor this big has got to breathe better than a carburetor like that. Well, it does if you're moving that volume of air through it. But the MGB engine, the MGC engine, that runs 1.75 inches, pair of 1.75 inches. You don't end up having a restriction to getting power out of the engine because the carburetors are too small. An MGB engine runs fine on midget carburetors, 1.25 inches, up to, I don't know, 60 miles an hour. After that, yeah, then it starves. It just simply can't get enough air through those carburetors. But the 1.5-inch carbs work just fine. So going to, HS6s or HD8s or something or other, all that means is that at idle, there's not enough airflow to vaporize the fuel, and it's going to run real poorly at idle. So you want to have a good you want to just your 1.5-inch carburetors, MGAs, MGBs, T-types. They'll run on those larger carburetors. The TFs do, and the TD Mark IIs run on 1.5 inches, but those are really overcarbureted. On the other hand, as I sent out in my constant contact note, the air inlet system for the TD, you can't get more circuitous than that. Oh my gosh. The air goes up in the air cleaner and then down in the air cleaner and then up in the air cleaner and back down and takes a 90 and takes another 90 and takes another 90 where it enters the carburetor. What is this craziness?
John,
Yes.
point out that the importer always took those off before they gave the car to car magazines to road test it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. It's it's a beautiful, beautiful system. There's no better air cleaner in the world than an oil bath air filter. That's what all those diesel trucks have, that 55-gallon barrel that hangs out the passenger side up in the air. That's their inlet. I mean, that's just the best filter you can get. But the way it's set up, and to be fair, on the TCs and the MGAs and the TFs, you're supposed to take your oil can and squirt oil frequently onto the wire mesh that's in the air filter as it sits, because the oil hanging on that wire pulls the particulates out of the air as the air goes by. Anyway, what else doesn't work?
So, John,
Yes.
yes. So what do you recommend for the TD?
Well, if you want to go fast, you want to put some stub sacks on it, but you got a real problem. I mean, you got to cut holes in the side of the side of the bonnet if you want to put air cleaners on. So
Now, I want to keep it as pure as
well,
possible.
then you've got to use the oil bath air cleaner. So,
Okay.
but you'll never get, if you're racing another guy, another TD, and everything else is equal, which it's not, then he'll win because if he's got pancake air filters on it or something like that. But
Okay.
no, keep it. How fast do you need to go? I mean,
Well, my issue is that I just want to get up the hill. I live in Virginia, next to the Blue Ridge, and it's fine driving around the bottom. But if when I go up to the Blue Ridge Mountains, to drive in the Skyline Drive, just getting up there, I'm going like 30. I just need a little more horsepower.
so you need to download that off my website, the tune-up chart, and make sure your timing is correct. Now you can static time your car at 0, just with a test light, and that equals 32 degrees at full mechanical advance. And if the distributor has not been rebuilt in your car, for as long as you know, send it out and have it rebuilt.
But John, I think
I mean, I've had my engine rebuilt. Everything's tuned up, and on the
Okay.
highway, I can get it to like 70, 72. Doing okay. I had the rear switch. It was a 450. I think it was a 5 something. I switched it to 455. I think it is.
Okay.
That's why you can't get
I
up
mean,
the hill.
the RPMs are pretty high. So on the flats, I'm doing it. I can do 70. But
Well,
once I get up the hill, it's just it's hurting for power.
your red line is up around $5,000 there someplace. Just take, like push it, stay in a lower gear and just because the faster that engine's going, the more power it's making.
Right. So I'm thinking maybe a supercharger. I want to keep it as much,
Well, that's not original, but
Well, but didn't they have superchargers back when?
most certainly they're period superchargers.
Right.
There's-
I want to keep it as period as much as possible.
So you can find a Judson. Those are thrashing things. It sounds like the engine's going to blow up when it's idling. But those work. Then there's Scirocks and there are Marshalls. But my guess is you could blow through $4,000 putting one on. But what's the scoop with it? I hate to focus on the distributor so much, but did you send that off and have it rebuilt?
I've had the whole thing redone. There's a company over the mountain that
Yeah, okay.
redoes. That they do a beautiful job. I had it
Okay. Well, just-
redone. I mean, it runs very nice.
Okay.
I mean, but it just power wise, and again,
I understand.
in the back roads. I live in the Virginia
Yeah.
wine area, and
Yeah.
it's perfect for going to wineries and stuff like that. But once I hit up that Blue Ridge, I climb a couple thousand feet, and it just dies on me. I mean, yeah, it's going like 30, and the sweet spot for it's probably 45. Which it runs great. I just love it. I mean, I don't have a radio in it or anything, so I'm not worried about the spark plugs. And I used to work on cars when I was in my teens, but ever since my arthritis, I had cataracts and retinal tears, I have to rely on somebody else to do it.
Got it.
I mean, I know what they should do, but I just can't do it with my hands
Yeah,
anymore.
I understand.
So I'm thinking, if I could get just a little bit more horsepower, I'm
Well,
thinking maybe putting a 5-speed on there so it doesn't struggle on the.
That's if you're in second or third gear, you can be running it in third gear up those hills at 4,000 RPM. So you just make sure that you're using the RPM to your advantage, even if it seems like it's screaming. As long as you trust the tach, don't go.
I don't really trust the tach. It kind of wavers. It goes all over.
Okay, so it's at a 53.
It's a 52.
Okay, all right.
52, 53. I mean, it's
but
it says it's a 53, but it's really a 52. I looked it up. It's really a 50. August of 52.
Okay. Right.
Just before they put the blinkers on it.
Okay.
John,
Well, you can contact me later on that if you want. So, Bruce, what's up?
Yeah, a question. I'm kind of new at this, so you'll have to forgive me asking a dumb question, but I recently bought a 1975 MGB. It has the single Weber carburetor versus the dual SUs.
Mhm.
Is there any significant difference between operation between those two?
No, not really.
Okay.
So everybody's all gaga about the SU carburetors, and you look at a 75 through 80 MGB with originally a single Stromberg carburetor on it, and you see it, it's got and the Weber's got the same thing, a logged manifold where the air goes down and then takes a 90 and goes out,
Right.
takes a 90 and goes in. It's just awful. And then on the late model MGBs, the exhaust comes forward, takes about a 180, and then leaves the car, and you go, oh my God, oh my God. Well, when Carl switched those back and forth and did the runs, I think it was maybe 3 or 4 horsepower difference. That's all. Okay. Now,
Okay.
and again, I'm big on 2 horsepower, but it isn't as much as your mind would think, and there's no better exhaust on your car than the factory original double Y made up by a cast iron manifold and a front exhaust pipe. That's the best exhaust you can get. All headers are horrible. All headers leak. All headers are noisy. All headers are hot. All headers are headaches. Now that's my opinion. That's my opinion. I hate
Thank
it.
you. I appreciate that
All
feedback.
right. Okay. Let me go just
John,
let me go just a little further here. Once we're done with the tune-up, then there's a couple more steps if you want to make your car go faster. The cylinder head, it's all about breathing, how much air can get into the engine. That's why the supercharger makes it run so much better because you're pushing more air into it. So if you have your cylinder head ported and polished, in fact, it's not really polished, it's ported to open up the ports so that you can get the air in more easily and or maybe even more importantly, get the exhaust out easily. Then you can raise the compression. So the compression of the cars is usually around 8.5 to 1, and for each half a point of compression, you can get 5 horsepower. But that doesn't mean that you can raise the compression 10 points and get an extra 100 horsepower out of it. That you run out of ability to use that it's not a linear deal, but you can go up to 10 to 1, 9.5 to 10 to 1. As long as you got the good gasoline, you got a cam to match it. So that's once you go into after you're done with the cylinder head, and that's, you've done everything you can in there. Then the next step is to change might as well get big pistons, and change the cam. You don't have to take the car apart to change the cam. You can do that in situ. But at this point, you're looking at doing all this stuff, or you can go out and buy that supercharger. Some guys pull their engines out and put in a V8. Oh my gosh. The whole car changes. The factory made V8s. 2571, 2751, not very many of them. And you can put a V8 in. And people, you can buy a kit from D&D Fabrications in Flint, Michigan. I don't know what his price is on it right now, probably 12, 13,000 bucks. Pull your engine out, put his in. All you can do is have an exhaust added to it, and you're set to go. You can do it in a couple days' time. It's pretty easy. You can put the blower on it. So anyway, okay, so that I completed my notes here about the tuning for speed to try to make your car go faster. So now I'm open for questions about tuning, And I may say, well, call me tomorrow because if it gets too intense or too detailed. But anyway, so
Hey, John, this is Judd.
good. Yeah.
You finished up with Cam, and I was thinking about Victor having trouble going through the parkway. I drive the other end of that parkway all the time, and in a 53 TD, and I don't have any trouble pulling those hills, and I don't have any trouble maintaining speed. My car is not exactly stock. It has been bored out to about 80 over, and I've got a roller cam, and I think the roller cam made a huge difference. I couldn't swear that it was the only thing, but after I put that in, the drivability, the ability to pull up a hill, the just the power available in the car made a huge difference to me. Again, I've never measured it. This is purely
Right.
sensory perception.
Yep. Yep. You know, that's
Actually,
probably the truth.
that was a question I had about the roller cam because I'd heard about the roller cam and I wanted to ask you about what you think of it.
Well, first of all, it's probably $3,000, right? To have
Right
somebody
on it.
install it. To have somebody install it.
We did the installation at my place. I mean, me and a buddy did it. Installation wasn't hard at all.
No, the radiator comes out in front of the engine, comes apart, and
Yeah, the engine out anyway.
well, that black 52, you want to take apart as little as you can. That's a pretty nice looking car, and he doesn't
It
do it
is.
himself, you know. But still, I'm just thinking it's got to be $3,000 to have that done. So you want to go at the other stuff first, and I'm so focused on timing. I'm so focused on timing. So, but I've had original T-type air cleaners that wing nut on the top of it has been tightened up so much that it's drawn the top of the carburetor down and you can't get the air through it. You know, you take the air cleaner off and the car runs great. You put the air cleaner back on and it's like restricted. It's like, what is going on here? Fix it with a big socket and an extension, 2 blocks of wood and a hammer, and it's all set to go again. But you've got to you've got to the gentleman with the black TD. You got to talk to your tune-up guys some more and say, look, and they can always call me. Some mechanics don't like to call somebody else. A lot of us are prima donnas. But I call anytime I ever got in a jam, I called people. I usually called Glenn at Glenn's MG Service in Florida, or Paul Deershaw at Sports Car Craftsman, or David Knock out at British Car Specialist in Stockton, California. All those guys are really good. They know what they're doing, and they do it every day. They're still in the business. So anyway, but I'm happy to take a private call tomorrow. And we can talk some more about how to get to where you want to go, which is to have your car run well. And if it takes a roller cam, it takes a roller cam, but you want to do the cheapest, fastest, easiest stuff first. So,
John, I'd like
John.
to talk a little bit about the port and polishing.
Yes, sir.
I did a MGB. I have an MGB engine and an MGA, and I ended up with a ported and polished head.
Okay.
And my brother, who had been in racing since 1957, he says, yeah, it'll run faster. The engine will run faster, but your low end torque is going to be way off. And he was right. It just doesn't have the low end. Get it up past 2,500, boy, it's nice, you know. But other than that, it suffers, or it don't suffer, but it's just not the same.
Right. That you can't get something for nothing, and it's always a trade-off. You want your car, the camshaft is the main controller in the engine. It decides whether you're going to run best at 800 or best at 8,000, and whether the engine runs clockwise or anti-clockwise. It's the main controller. And oh boy, there are I don't know. I have a list of, I don't know, 60 different camshafts that have been available, factory cams and aftermarket cams. A lot of people like the Delta. Oh, I can't.
D9,
What's that?
the D9, Delta
D9?
D9.
Okay, all right. And Iskandarian used to make cam. Lots of people used to make cams, but everything's changing. Market's changing, and if you're going to buy a cam to put in your car, you want to buy it from a reputable source because it is so critical. Or inspect the cam yourself. But how are you going to inspect it to make sure that the cam lobes are all in the right place and they all have the same lift? You need some way to turn it. You need a dial indicator and a degree wheel and all that kind of stuff. Or you can just buy it from somebody that you implicitly trust. So now
John?
somebody else has been trying to get on. Yeah.
Yeah, John, that guy with the black TD,
Yes.
why not take that car to a shop that has a dyno and just see what the power is to see if it's lacking or not?
Well, he knows it's lacking, and it is lacking because it should be able to go up. I mean, I don't know, maybe not a 30-degree grade, but you haven't got that on the Parkway. So it sounds slow to me. I'm not surprised that it's slow. And Judd says he runs his, not exactly in the same place, but still someplace there in the Confederacy.
So on the Parkway itself, it runs fine. It's getting up to the Parkway.
Right. Yeah. Well, it should do that. Finding a shop with a dynamometer is difficult, but I would expect about 50 at the rear wheels on a T-type.
John, about the cold air
Yeah.
intake. I got it. I used the top of an Aerostar box, 90 Aerostar, with a hose, but it's smooth. That
Okay.
makes a big difference. And on the end, I have a K&N type filter. It's open in the middle, so I'm getting more air. But anyway, I wondered, does it work? I'm in Colorado. I not even 500 RPM. Get out on the highway 65 miles an hour, and I put it in neutral, and now I'm idling it closer to 1500 RPM. It's really pushing some air. But around town, there's no difference. But it's when you get out on the highway, that's where you get the more, I don't know if it's more power or just it runs better.
Well,
And I do have the short stacks.
only way to know for sure if it works or not is you put it on, go out, make a timed run, and then take it off and make a timed run, But the rule of thumb is it's just a lot of extra restriction to the air. So,
Yeah, I agree with that corrugated. I never use that. It's got to be the smooth hose.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you defeat the whole purpose.
right.
So,
Right.
and I saw something, someplace that has like a fan that you put in. That doesn't work.
But the poor man's
Before I bought
poor
one, I
man's
read about it.
supercharger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't work.
Well, it would work. It would work if the fan was big enough. That's all a supercharger is.
Yep.
So, yep.
John, one last thing on this Blue Ridge Parkway thing. Do SUs automatically compensate for altitude, or do you need to do
No.
anything for altitude?
No, they don't. I had a customer who lived in Quito, Ecuador. So Quito is a mile above. I mean, it's on the top of an old mountain or volcano or something. It's a mile in the air. And he said you can tune up your car, it runs great. Then you drive down the mountain and you're down where the air is thicker and it does not run the same. So no, they don't correct for that. So there are lean needles or rich needles having to do with the type of driving that you want to do. And you can make some adjustment underneath the carburetors, but mainly it's the shape of the needle that has to do with how it mixes. So if you were driving all the time in Denver and then brought the car back to make up a Miami, then those are two very different places, and you might end up with being happy with two different sets of needles, one for up in the air and one for sea level.
Because I mean, we would normally run from 800 feet to 3,500 feet, and I don't know. Do you tune for the bottom or you tune for the top? I have no idea.
You tune for wherever you drive it the most, which
Back and forth.
okay.
Tune for the middle.
Well, you can always take that, after you get the carburetors all dialed in and they're just great and it's perfect at your house, just crank them three three flats clockwise. Try it that way one time. Crank
That's a
them
good
back,
idea.
crank them three flats, half a turn anti-clockwise, and just see, but hey, just experiment,
We call that counting the horse's teeth.
Okay, do we have some more questions about tune-ups? Or
Yes,
else-
John,
Yes,
Pete Miller, Cornwall.
yes, sir.
Three quick questions. You mentioned the distributors. You had the two different numbers, 897 and 427, but also the 25D and the 45D. So which is which? I'm not clear.
Okay, so there are two different types of distributors that were used in the MGAs, excuse me, in the MGBs. There's a body. The body is a 25D.
Okay.
25D. And then in 75, they switched to a different body, 45D. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
But if you want the same advanced spec, you can get the same advanced spec on the 25D. That's the 40897.
Right.
And in the 45, it's a 41427.
Gotcha.
That's all.
All right. Two more questions. I have a 1500 MGA. To achieve like a 10-to-1 compression, how much do you take off the head?
I don't know. I can't. I don't have a number off the top of my head. What I've done in the past,
Yeah.
Is take the cylinder head gasket. You should take the cylinder head and tap a piece of paper out of that, put it on a graph paper, draw around it, count the number of squares on the inside.
Okay.
And then count any partial squares, half a square, and just hope that it averages out that.
Yeah.
Yep. And then they get the area, the size of the squares, you get the area, and then calculate but I would think it would be in the certainly a 16th of an inch.
That much?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Last question. 1500 MGA. Would you off the top of your head know the correct needle for that? The jet needle for the carburetor? Pardon me?
GJ.
CJ. C is in Charlie?
George Juliet.
Okay.
Golf. Excuse me. Golf Juliet.
I got you.
Now, I think that's right. Who else here is online that knows for sure?
Golf. He cut off.
Golf Juliet.
Thank you. That's what he said. Now,
Hey,
next question.
That's what I said. But
it is what you said.
I wasn't sure. Yeah.
I'm running way too rich no matter what I do. So I don't even know what the needle is in there. But how incremental are these changes? I mean, would I jump like one needle at a time or either way? Just a very tedious process.
First of all, with the suction chambers off, you crank the nut up all the way and make sure that the jet comes up to the bridge. Comes up to the bridge, because if it's sitting below, it won't work. You can still get it leaner, right? So why is that happening? Well, then now we got to argue about how the carburetors are built, and when you're working on the carburetor, stuff like that, the best place to work on them is on the engine. Even in an MGA where it's real
tough,
upside down and backwards. But they're, you take them off, and how are you going to hold them in the vise?
Yeah.
They're on the table, they're flopping around, and it's T-types and Bs are real easy. And best place to rebuild them is right on the car.
Yeah.
Unless you got to do shafts and butterflies and stuff like that. But and then and also check your float height. If your float height is too high,
and fuel pressure,
right? You can bring that down. And Pat suggested fuel pressure, but that shouldn't make a difference because the float height controls how high the float, like the back of your toilet. It doesn't matter what the pressure is going into the toilet until it's too high, and then it leaks past the valve.
Yeah.
So.
Always good information, John. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
The needles are GS.
You're right. I've got the book right here.
Uh-oh. I wasn't right. Okay.
All right. So
Golf Sierra.
Golf Sierra. Okay.
Correct.
As in George Smith. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Can
Hey,
I write that down? You
There's
made
a
a
number
mistake?
4 needle that is leaner. Number 4 is lean.
Okay,
Okay. Is that the, well, I had the chart from SU, but I can go from there, but
yeah.
I needed
Yeah.
a starting point.
And a really good source. Well, first of all, there's probably something else going on. It's probably
Mhm.
not the needle. And you pull the needle out and it says, I don't know, number sevens or something, or, I don't know, H4 or something.
Okay.
It's like, what are these? But chances are the needles are correct. Sometimes people have pulled the springs on top of the pistons.
Right.
They're not that long. They're like long,
Yeah.
and of course that's pushing that's pushing down on the pistons. The
Sure.
smaller the venturi, the more gasoline is going to get sucked out. So you want the pistons to be higher than they are.
Mhm.
Um, um, and if you can get a mismatch. This is probably, I'm sure this isn't it, but on all the SU carburetors, you've got to have one vent hole. You got to have it, the suction
Right.
chamber, the dash pot vented either
Mhm.
to the atmosphere or to the inside of the carburetor, one or the other, but not both and not
Mhm.
neither. So Alan was just on a moment ago. Alan's a retired dentist who now is Dr. Carburetor and it should be Dr. SU, who services the SU, the MG group up in Toronto. So.
Mhm.
Alan, thanks for being on.
Great. Good stuff. Thank you very much.
John, question about cylinder size.
Yes,
I sent you a message earlier this evening. I've got a 1600 MGA. The engine was rebored, I believe, with 1622 pistons, which is the same for the Mark II. What does that do for me in terms of power, in terms of
nothing.
horsepower?
24,
Nothing?
25, 22 cc's is just nothing. It's just nothing. If you do have 1622 pistons in there, you've got MGB connecting rods. It's got a larger wrist pin. So that's common with the MGB engine up through 67. It's that same, no, up through the end of the three main engine, up through 64. But anyway, no, it isn't going to make any difference. One of the fastest MGs I ever drove was a MGA 1500. Now we didn't take I didn't take the engine apart to see why it was fast. I don't know, but it was just phenomenal. It was just, I thought, oh my gosh, it all has to do with breathing. In modern cars, they've got a displacement of 1500, 1600 cc's. Now it's all computer controlled and fuel injection, and I mean they got everything going for it, but the engine isn't any bigger. They're getting more torque. They're getting more power per cc than we are. So that it's you can make these engines powerful, but it has to do with breathing. It has to do with breathing and getting everything else in line. But that 25, 22 cc's isn't going to make a whit of difference.
Thank you.
Hello, John.
Yes,
I've got a 79 MGB. Had a Lucas Opus distributor 45 DE4.
sure. Yep.
Of course, it was trash. Had it replaced 3 times while the car was under warranty. And so after I got it, I replaced it with a 25D. Is that going to cause me problems?
Well, 25, there are probably, I don't know, I haven't got the catalog in front of me. There are probably 3,000 different 25D distributors for a Morris Oxford or an Austin Cambridge or a Mini or an Austin Marina I'm making.
I got it from Moss Motors for a MGB. I think it's for early 70s model, but okay.
Who knows? Who knows what it is? Did you get it recently?
No, I've got it probably 20 years ago.
Well, it might still be a original 25D distributor, rather than a Chinese knockoff.
No,
So,
it's not Chinese. I know that.
okay, so you can send that. You can send that to one of those two distributor places during the winter and get it rebuilt to that 40897 spec. What year's your car?
79 MGB.
What kind of carburetor do you have on it?
Right now is the what came with it? I'm trying to think of the name of it.
Stromberg. Stromberg. So
Yeah.
that's got a port. The Stromberg has a port on it, right at that goes to the EGR valve right now, which you don't
Right.
need. So you can steal that port and use it for a 40897 distributor, and then the car is going to run as well as it might.
Is that 40897?
40897. Yes, sir.
Okay, let me ask you about this. What if I upgraded with a Protronic ignition?
That's the switching unit. That's just the switching, and those rebuilders don't like Protronics. Protronics used to be great. Their failure rate was almost zero. Now their failure rate's a lot higher. They're not made quite as well as they used to be. And the distributor guys, they'll put the Protronics back in it if you demand, but they don't like them because at higher RPM, you can get some sort of radio frequency that begins to disturb the spark. Probably not in the range where you're going to be driving it, but it can and does happen. So both those rebuilders love points. We won World War II with points, so there's nothing wrong with them at all. It's old fashioned, but they work.
Okay, also I bought from Moss upgraded I think it's called flamethrower Protronic electronic ignition.
The coil.
I bought the coil and the distributor.
Again, you can't have a better coil. You can have a worse coil. You can have good coil or you can have a bad coil.
Well, they said the 3-ohm coil. That's why I bought
it. A 3-ohm coil it is?
That's what, yes.
And what year is this going in?
79 MGB.
Okay, you're getting half your spark out of it. So right now, the way that it should be hooked up, if you use the original wires, it's being powered with a pair of white with greens.
Okay.
Pull those off. Find the white wire that used to go to the resistor. There's a white wire available there.
Okay.
And power the coil with a straight white wire, that straight 12 volts.
Okay. And that should do it for that 3-ohm coil?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And also came with if I spit out suppression plug wires.
Well, the plug you put an ohm meter on them. If you got some little
I've
device.
got an ohm meter.
Yep, just check them. They all should be consistent around somewhere between 4,000 and 8,000 ohms. But they should be consistent within about 10%.
Okay. That should do me then.
Okay.
What about 45 that 45 DE4? One time I had an Allison electronic modification on it. It worked well for a while, but the Allison, the control module kept burning up on it.
Oh, that's too bad. That's probably because it's wired wrong by the installer.
No, it would last about 4 or 5 months and it would get hot.
No, that doesn't make sense.
That wasn't it?
No, I still see a lot of them on cars. They're real strong units. They're real nice units. But what we're talking about here is getting the timing correct, not how we're making the spark, but when the spark comes.
Okay.
So that's your distributor in your 79B was designed to make it pollute correctly, not to run the best. So that's why we're having all this talk about getting an earlier distributor in there.
If I put an SU carburetor on, take that Zenith Stromberg off, you need 25?
Well, if the Zenith is working okay, there's no advantage. There's zero advantage to putting an SU over Stromberg. It's the same carburetor, same style of carburetor. There is some slight advantage to putting dual SUs on in the factory exhaust manifold. And there's some slight advantage in there. You might pick up, I don't know, maybe a horsepower, 2, 3, something like that. Not a whole lot, so.
All right. Okay. That's good education.
Okay.
Hey, John. If I can jump in,
Mark's on right now, I think.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you've really given me something to think about. I always thought when I got this 1980 MGB, I was going to backdate everything, on the engine, dual SUs, all that stuff.
Well, I would.
I
I would, but you don't have to. It isn't going to run.
It drives fine.
It all comes down to, it all comes down to how it drives, how much fun you want to have, and how much money you got.
Okay,
Really.
but here's my question though. So the prior owner put in a Beck and Arnley electronic ignition.
I wonder what that is. Beck Arnley was a huge import supplier back in the day.
So apparently they don't make it anymore. I looked at the website. I have the actual document that came with it. The original owner was great at saving everything.
Okay.
But I kind of consider this as a single point of failure. And if I go, I'm trying to get this thing to the point where I trust it for the springtime. I'm in Michigan with you. And so I won't be using it much until then. But I'm looking at it going, okay, what do I do if I want to not be stranded? Because I obviously couldn't get one of these if I was on the side of the road somewhere.
Correct. So you can call one of those two distributor places and just ask them for a early distributor, 40897, and install it, time it, run it to the port, which right now goes to the EGR valve. It's a brass port right at the very center top of your carburetor, after the suction, behind the suction chamber, and set it at 32 max, and it's great. It'll be wonderful. You can also set it at 8 degrees static, just using a timing light. You can always or a test light, just an on-off test light. You don't need a dial back timing light. If the distributor's new and it's just been rebuilt, and you know what the advance is, which is 12 degrees in the distributor, which makes it 24 on the crank, and 24 from 32 equals 8. So you set it at 8 static, and it'll run very, very well.
So I assume the 1980 MGB had points still.
No, it had electronic.
Had electronic. Oh,
1975 through 1980 had, well, California spec 75 through 80 had electronic. Federal spec 76 through 80 had electronic.
Okay. So just as a spare, let's say the thing's running fine. I don't want to get stranded.
Okay.
But I just order the standard.
Yeah, and I mean, to rebuild a carburetor is a better part of $200. So to buy one outright might be $300. Why would you do that when you could buy one for $75 out of the catalog, out of our major supplier catalog for $75? That'll work too. I mean, it'll work to get you home, with points in it and stuff. So you can make a case if it's just for an emergency. It's just like a spare tire. You don't need your $300 tire if it's a spare. You just need something to get you home. So
yeah, okay, great. And also thanks for another week's worth of tinkering with the new checklist, the tune-up checklist. Last 2 weeks ago, I got the checklist for the lube.
Oh, okay.
I've been working on that. Well, I do have a question on that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So my shocks, they're completely dry,
No,
and they seem to be working fine.
They can't be completely dry.
I mean,
I use an oil can with a piece of rubber tubing on the end, and then a little hook of copper tubing, and it's filled with shock oil.
Yeah.
Which is, motorcycle fork oil or hydraulic oil.
Okay.
And you undo the cap. In the rear, it's underneath the plastic pieces next to the battery boxes. And up front, you got to use a 13 millimeter wrench to get that open. It's a 5/16 British size, but 13 works. And spin it out and put that little hook in there and glug, 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 and just keep glugging until it squirts out, and then it's full.
Okay, so would they be down even though there's no sign They ever leaked?
Sure. I mean, because not all the fluid that was in them originally is still in them. It's leaked out a drop a year, you know?
Okay. Okay.
That's 40 drops, 50
Fair
drops,
enough. Fair enough.
however old the 1980 is, you know? So, yeah,
It's a 44-year-old car with 21,000 miles on it.
sounds cool. Sounds real nice.
It's, when I talk about backdating, that's what holds me back. It's like, okay, it's a preservation project now. It's not.
Is the air pump still on it?
Everything is on it.
No, then you can make a case. You can make a case for keeping it original. It's just, whatever,
Yeah.
take the whole power plant out and slip in a V8. Fits right in. So, whatever
Yes.
is your fantasy.
I really thought the first, when I got another MGB that, that's what I was going to do. Get the newest one possible with the best body and then make it, like a 67 or something, but, cause that's what I had. I had 67, 69 back in the day.
Now I know people who bought late model MGBs and taken the bumpers off and putting chrome bumpers on, and it's like, if you want a chrome bumper car, buy a chrome bumper car. Why change one?
Well,
Again,
on our performance topic, that would probably be my biggest performance gain would be to just take those heavy things right off because that's a weight savings.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right, you're welcome. You're welcome. I've got to get over to the chat section here pretty soon because it's 8:54. So I think I'm gonna slip over there unless David, you got a comment?
John, can you hear me here?
Yes.
Oh, great, John. Good to meet you, David Smith. I'm calling from Toronto, Canada. In case you're
Sure.
wondering where I'm from. I've got a 73 MGB, modified 1800 cc engine, and my question really has to do with, at going in, let's say fourth gear, 4,000 up into 5,500 RPM, like really putting your foot into it. It feels like it's running out of something. And I'm just wondering what I might tackle that. Is that fuel? Is it air? How do I go about assessing what's happening?
If it feels like you've lost sort of power up there, especially if it coughs or hiccups, at high speed going up a slight hill, or feels like you're pulling a trailer, it just isn't there. Disconnect the evaporative loss control from the carburetors. You've got a steel line that goes on either end of the HIF carburetors, up around in the air cleaner and over to the charcoal canister. Just take those off the carburetors and go out and drive it and see if that makes any difference. It should not make one iota of difference.
Okay.
Nothing. If it does, something's up with the charcoal canister, and you can run with it disconnected until you get around to fixing it.
Yeah.
The next thing is the timing, but that's the approach that I would take. Just myself. It could be the cam shot. I mean, it could be that you got a bad lobe on the cam, and I mean, it could be anything. So,
Okay.
but those do the cheapest, fastest, easiest stuff first. So that's the. And if you think you need work on the carburetor, you can get in touch with Alan Vinegar. Get in touch with him through the Toronto MG Car Club.
Yeah. I know him well.
Okay.
Okay, great. Enjoying your day here. I'll let you move on to the chat. So thank you very much.
Okay.
John, one thing real quick.
Yeah.
So, the two different types of electronic ignition they put on the Bs. The early ones had that big box hanging off the side of the distributor body, all potted in the green.
That was the Opus, right?
I'm not sure.
I think, and the other one's the CEI.
Yeah, but the late ones with the black box that was mounted on the inner fender well. Did you ever drill the rivets out on that and see what's in there?
No, they never failed. They're still on the road.
Well, when they rarely do fail, drill the rivets out and then take that module down to the parts store, and the guy's going to go, "Oh yeah, that's Chevrolet." So that's a General Motors HEI module in that black box.
Okay.
Way cheaper than buying the Lucas part. And, usually a very reliable, as you stated, ignition system. But if it does fail, don't spend a lot of money.
Okay. The steering columns were made in Saginaw, Michigan.
Makes
So,
sense.
yep. In the TAC and Speedos were made in England, but they were made by Texas Instruments. So yeah, it isn't really all a British car. Yeah, I think the air pumps. I think maybe they sourced the air pumps from over here or something too.
Colt Industries.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Thanks, John.
Hey, thank you, Pat. I'm gonna be out there next week Wednesday in the LA area. So
Well, if you're bored, head south.
okay. Okay. I'll be with my daughter. That's never boring. So yeah. Anyway, anything else
Hi, John.
I can answer? Yes.
Yes. So you were talking about tax and I don't know about speedometers, but my tack and speedometer is really more of kind of a range kind of I'm driving down the road and it's kind of like somewhere in there.
So
Right?
that's almost always the cable.
Okay.
That's the
So
the
that's
cable.
for both?
The inner cable spinning in a sheath, right? And it gets snagged on the side and then winds up, whips, and that causes that waving. So if you want to find out if that's the issue, then you can put a drill undo the cable from the tack reduction box, put your drill on it, run the drill backwards, and it of course it should be very steady at, I don't know, 1500, 2000 RPM with your drill on fast. If it's waving, then you can take the tack out of the dash. It comes out pretty easily. You can reach it pretty easily, unless there's the under dash cover that nobody ever puts back on. And then put something in the end of the drill to spin the tack and see if it runs steady. Or you can just spend $28 or whatever it is and buy another cable and put the cable in. So
Okay, great. Because it wavers like the RPMs wavers like 2000 RPMs.
yeah,
And
it
the
could
speedometer
be-
does the same thing.
It could be the tack. It could be the tack, and you might have to send those out and have them redone. And there's a place in New York. Somebody that used to work for Neisinger. It's a British Instruments, New York State, someplace. And then there's West Valley Instruments in California. So you
Okay.
got, and there's other places.
I'll contact you later.
Okay.
I don't want to tie up everybody.
Right. Okay, doke. So I'm gonna move over to chat because I got some questions here. I got 77 messages on chat. I'm not gonna get through them by the time I get to 9:30, which is my hard cutoff time. So let me make another pitch. If you like what you hear, if this is fun, help support the movement, my movement, and go to that PayPal and click help John afford his life and his retirement, or whatever cute thing it says there. Anyway, thank you. Let's see, Tom Weisel, I'd like to discuss a low battery condition I experienced over the weekend and the symptoms I experienced. So Tom, you're still on.
Yeah, John.
What's up?
I got in the car. It was a cold, snappy weekend. Turned the ignition key and chattering of the starter relay.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh, typical battery connection, probably." I was able to try the ignition switch 2 or 3 more times, and the engine turned over and it fired right up. I look over at my tack, and it's jumping all around. Never did that before. And I'm wondering. And then I turned my heater on, drawing a little load, put a little load on the system, and the tack went nuts. So
Bad,
I took.
bad
Have you seen
connection.
those symptoms? Have you seen those symptoms being around?
You didn't have it hooked to a jumper lead when you're doing that, to a battery charger.
Oh no, the battery.
Okay.
Battery. Yeah.
Okay. No, I haven't seen that exactly, but the rule is on my sheet, when weird things happen, it's a bad ground or a bad connection.
Okay, so I I crawled under and tightened the nut on the back of the starter first,
Okay.
where all the brown wires go, and then I cleaned thoroughly the battery terminals, and the problem's solved. It cranks nice and strong. Batteries and the
Yep.
horns nice and strong. Real quick, because other people online, what RPM makes the most horsepower on our engines? The 1800.
Around $5,000.
Okay, up to 5. All right.
I can't close my eyes and see the graph. You got the torque curve and the horsepower curve. And of course, the faster the engine goes, the more power it takes to spin it. And you got a couple things in motion, and the line crosses around 5,000 RPM.
Okay, that high. Okay. And valve adjustment, you prefer cold or hot or both? Doesn't matter.
I prefer hot because that's what it is when the car's running.
Okay.
But again, when I pulled out my table with a coefficient of expansion and looked at steel. Now, I don't know what kind of steel. I looked at steel, and a piece of foot long expands 1/10,000th between 0 and 100 Celsius. So there's no difference. But that's not all that's in motion. You got you got the lifter, you got the valve, you got a lot of stuff else. I always do it hot, always.
Yeah. Okay. And the last question, there's a slate and violet wire coming from the ignition switch, and it runs over to the anti-run-on valve.
Yes.
That's the only slate and yellow, slate and violet that I can see in the car. Is that the only place it's used?
Yes. Yep. When the key is off.
Yeah.
When the key is off, then the anti-run-on valve is hot.
Turned on.
Turned on. As soon as you turn the key to on, the anti-run-on valve turns off. For the anti-run-on valve to work, you got to have oil pressure. The oil pressure switch grounds it.
Oh,
The
good.
only time
Otherwise, it would be a parasitic load. Okay. Gotcha.
Right.
Oh, the oil pressure grounds it. All right, good.
So the only time the key's off and you've got oil pressure is in that 2 to 10 seconds after you turn the engine off.
That's clever. Okay, good. That's it. That's all for my questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next one, Greg. Sorry, I don't have a mic. I had my block for my 1968 MGB machine. The cylinders are bored 30 over, and it's decked 2000s. Do I need anything to account for the machining? No, that's you don't have to do anything to account for the machining. Make sure everything's clean. You can always put a piece of glass on top of the engine. Use a burette or a hypodermic syringe and shoot water in there to see how much it takes when the piston's at its topmost part, and then see what the combustion chamber is of the cylinder head, and then add, I think it's, God, is it 4.5? Seems like a lot for the gasket, and you can calculate your compression ratio. So that's for Greg from Bowmansville, PA. Here's the PayPal link. Here is Phil Calura, 74 MGB with an inverted filter. Always managed to spill some oil when unscrewing the filter. Just wondering if there's a neater way to do it. Phil, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm here, John.
Okay, so poke a hole, take an ice pick, poke a hole in the top of the filter, and wait a day. Now, at our age, we'll forget that we poked a hole in the top of the filter and go out and start the car, right? So if you're going to do that, disconnect the coil so you can't start it. Okay? And then after a day, as much as run out of that filter as is going to run out.
John, I have a quicker way that we do is get a piece of cardboard long enough to reach the oil drain pan, maybe 8 inches wide, fold it into a V shape, put it underneath that filter, and it all just runs down on the pan. And don't have to worry about getting on the starter or anything like that. Then you got to remember where you put that cardboard.
Okay, but I see two sets of hands here though. One to undo the filter, and someone lying underneath the car aiming the oil. Let me guess who that is.
Her name is Gloria.
Okay. So, all right. Okay. All right. Anyway, so there's two ways. Two ways. Okay. Marty's got another one on here. She's got a bunch of notes here. Chuck Linick. You still on, Chuck?
I am. Hi, John.
Hey, great. Oh, that's a beautiful, beautiful B. Replacing the front coil springs on my 66B. What is the correct spring height? Geez, I don't know. Definitely has the uphill appearance I've read about.
Yeah, I left my picture there.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have a sideways one on my profile, and you can see kind of it. The front end is definitely too high, and I've been doing all kinds of research on this, and
I have the figures. I have figures from about 100 different complete lubes. And
Barney's site even has MGB in it. Barney's Gaylord site.
Barney
But
Gaylord. Okay, so
yeah,
I was measured the distance from the ground to the bottom of the chrome strip, and uh, I don't- I cannot minimize my Zoom workplace. Um,
no problem.
so
The front end is definitely higher, and I know my back, my leaves aren't sagging, um, but
is it a whole inch difference?
at least I mean and
Okay,
you know I there it's apart now, so I can't measure to like the
okay.
chrome strip, but they're 9.25 inch in height, which seems to be what everybody is selling for chrome bumper. And I'm like, are these actually too high? And uh, I saw these ones that I think it was in an article, somebody referenced them on their GT, and they had the same issue, and they bought these. The ones I mentioned, they're from, I think Rimmer Brothers was carrying them, and they're 8.63 inches, and it settled his car down. He had pictures, and I went, okay, have springs just managed to not be produced in a consistent manner with what they?
Well, the workshop manual's got some real detailed stuff. You've already read that. I know you have. There's a length, there's a number of coils, there's
Mhm.
the diameter of the coil, and that defines the spring, assuming that all springs are made from the same spring steel, which they're probably not. So I don't know. I don't know. Talk to me tomorrow, Chuck.
Hey,
Okay.
John,
Okay. Yes.
uh, I had a 78 that I lowered,
Yeah.
and mine sits what I thought was way too low in the front. Um, and then as I got to look at it, I noticed that the right side was lower than the other. So I bought another set of springs. I haven't put them on yet, but the initial ones that I bought from Moss seemed like the right side was lower than the other by about an inch and a half.
Oh my
So
gosh.
the whole car.
Oh,
Well, you can install springs that don't seat until you go out and hit some railroad tracks with them, and you get this. I mean, if you got 1,000 miles on your car, that's one thing. But if you got like very few miles or no miles on it, and it's sitting weird, go out and drive it. Go out and drive it and see if they settle in.
Yeah, I've got 1,400 on it now.
Oh,
So,
that they're
yeah,
settled
maybe
in.
I'll relook at it. But I just thought maybe I just had a bad spring, so I bought another set, which was a
Well,
waste of 100
almost
bucks.
always,
But
almost always the coil springs are okay. It's the leaf springs that are bad. So if the
mhm.
leaf spring collapses, then the diagonal in the front rises.
mm,
And
yeah,
what's
I don't think that
what,
it doesn't appear as if the back is
well,
these are
use
all
the tape.
kind of reconditioned
Yep, use
everything.
a tape measure. Go from the ground. The workshop manual's telling you to measure from the center of the wheel. It's like what? Just from the ground, just from the ground up to the bottom of the chrome strip to the nearest eighth of an inch. It should all be the same.
Should all be the same. All right, I'll relook at that. But
Okay.
okay, very good. Thanks.
Okay. Joe uh, Mon- Montalto. Anyone have any experience with putting rear disc brakes? Any measurable difference? Joe, are you still on? Don't hear anything from Joe. I wouldn't do it. The brakes on the car are just great. You don't have to do anything to the brakes on an MGB. If you're out and you're doing 40 miles an hour on a road that you can stop on and you jam on the brakes, if the car goes into a skid, you don't need bigger brakes, you need better tires. So our cars have got excellent brakes on them the way that they are. But some people just like to do that. Joe, are you still there?
No, but
All right.
I have a question about putting disc brakes on the front of
Don't,
the
don't,
GTD.
don't. It's a waste of time and effort.
Okay.
It doesn't stop any better. It'll stop on repeated stops. If you do 0 to 60 to 0, like 20 times in a row, and you're doing emergency stops, your brakes will heat up so much that they'll get creepy and they won't want to work right. Chances are you don't drive your car like that.
I don't.
Disc brakes don't stop you any better. They just don't fade. So that's all.
I talked to a guy who was selling disc brakes for the back of the MG and other cars,
Yeah.
and he said, between me and you, he says it's a waste of money to put discs on the back of an MG. So
Yeah.
those brakes are big, and
They're
most of your
they're big and they're
stopping,
great. Yep.
yeah, most of your stopping's done with the front anyway.
And Pat Garrity agrees with us. It has to do with the balance of the brakes and so forth. So I'm moving right along here. Gerald Dalton, I use my barbecue grill to bake VW diesel intake carbon. Makes the steaks taste a bit oily at first. But would that work for? Would it work for spark plugs too? Yeah, you got to get up to, I don't know, 400 or 500 degrees. It's got to be really really hot to turn the oil into carbon, and then you got to blow it off. So. Yeah, my buddy used to put his motorcycle plugs in the campfire every night. So you do what you have to do. But John's choice for plug wires, they're all the same. Any Napa, just go to Napa and buy a 4-wire set, as long as they're long enough.
NGK's, John, the best.
What's that?
NGK plug wires. They fit and they're cheap.
Educate.
NGK.
From
NGK.
where?
Like the spark plug. Rock Auto.
Okay.
Half the price of Moss.
Well, okay. Napa's probably half the price too.
A third the price.
Yeah. Fred, seed everybody. Putting a 76 MGB 18V into my 61 MGA. Restoration. The engine's been professionally rebuilt with a 20 overbore, 10 grind, and a D9 cam. So that's cool. That's very, very cool. When you go to put an MGB engine into an MGA, you've got to account for the rear plate to get the MGA gearbox attached to it. The easier way is to take the plate to a machine shop and have it opened up to, I think it's 4.5 inches. I don't know, whatever size the seal is on the OD. The ID is 3.5 inches. But you've got to get you've got to get a seal in that engine, because there isn't a seal in the MGA on the rear cover. So
Moss sells them now. It's easy.
yeah, I tried those T-type ones. Yeah. See, let's see, a D9, Basil Adams. He's a supplier. Basil Adams, or Basil if you're British, Adams. He sells the D9 cams. So that's some text about that. Let's see, here we go. Rebecca Schuster. Seen a few of these, just wondering if the lack of advance is common. Either way, it needs to go. Previous owner provided an AccuSpark that he never installed. Think I'm going back to points. It doesn't matter if you're points or ignition or whatever. It depends on when the spark comes. And when the spark comes, and that's what you've got to get corrected. An AccuSpark is a computer controlled that you can dial in your own advance. So you take the 40897 advance curve and you plug it into your AccuSpark, and then it's going to be as good as that 40897. Working here, Fred seeing everybody. What's the optimal distributor for this rig? I think he's talking about his 18V engine. Probably the 41427. What's the experience with the electronic 1, 2, 3 distributors? The prospect of controlling the timing with your iPhone is attractive. No, just set it up. Just get it set up and leave it. It's to fiddle with it, sure, fiddle with it, but too many electronics. All electronics fail.
When I've got a 1, 2, 3 ignition I got for free because my friend sells them, and some people don't read directions how to hook them up, and they send them back. So he put it in my car to test it, and he said, "Well, as long as I can use your car as a test car, you can have it." So the best thing about it, I don't set the timing with the cell phone or anything. The best thing is you can shut it off with your cell phone. Gives you two anti-theft devices.
That's
that
cool.
and
All
your
right.
stick shift. That's the
Okay.
best part.
That's funny. That's cool. Pat Garrity says Moss has got the K&N air filter assemblies for the MGBs 222-910. And he also says the spark doesn't make the horsepower, it only lights the fuel. So, yep. And AccuSpark, we got more. Anyone who else wants to read through these chat sections can. I'm using a Protronics on my 76 Midget, as the original MG distributor had a vacuum retard. The Protronics works great using the dial back timing light. The Protronics distributor gets to 31 advanced at 3000 RPM. Power's great. Yeah, okay. So we're dealing with 32 again. The distributor does a couple different things. It makes the spark. It makes the spark through electronics, through magnetic pulse, or with a light, or it does it with points. It doesn't make any difference how it does it, because it works. Some last longer than others. The points give you lots of warning when they're starting to go bad. The electronic ignitions, I think I'm going to hit mute all here. And the electronic ignitions give you no warning. You're off the road, just like that. So you better be carrying an extra distributor with you. David Alexander using a dial back timing light at 3000 RPM is pretty exciting. The fans on the engine and alternator take no prisoners. Yes, thank you. Thank you, David Alexander. Thank you. He's from England. He's probably not still on because it's like 3 o'clock in the morning there. But no, there's none of these mechanical components have any conscience at all. They're happy as a clam to grab your finger and remove it, or part of it. So there's even less room in the engine compartment of my ZB Magnet compared with my MGB. Yeah, in 1972 they put the timing marks up at 11 o'clock. I hope they paid that guy $1 million. What a wonderful, wonderful thing he did. Oh my gosh. It's like the same guy that decided that, first of all, that gas caps could be on a string on your gas cap. Remember everybody used to lose their gas caps? Oh my gosh. Now nobody does that. Anyway, I hope they paid that guy that same $1 million too. Please comment on the fine adjusting to do trials on the 25D distributor has a little wheel on it. 11 clicks to 1 degree. If the clicker's in there, click, 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 click. 11 clicks to 1 degree. Just keep that in mind. And you can go out and fiddle with that out on the road. But if you set it 32, you shouldn't have to click anything. This is back when there was a lot more driver input. But anyway, User to everybody. Good to see all you old farts with long hair and beards like mine. Oh, I guess from Gary Greenspoon. Well, I guess got his camera upside down. Pat Garrity and MG with a downdraft Weber. Looks like a looks like a Russian tractor motor. Yeah. Weber's, there is hardly a difference in carburetors. You got side draft Webers, downdraft Webers, Strombergs, SUs. Nash Metropolitan uses a Solex. They all have the same function and they all work pretty well. You can argue that straightening out the inlet system helps, but carburetors they just do the same job. Tony Caputo, my 1500 midget has a Weber 3036 progressive, took a bit to dial it in. Now it works great. The carb came with a high flow manifold from Redline. Okay, so maybe it's a Y shaped and not a log manifold. So that would make sense. Steve Shupak, when I got my B, it was running super rich and I couldn't lean it out. Turned out one of the front tabs on the I don't know, it says reed lid, but maybe means float lid, was broken. SU to the rescue, and I was able to get a proper float height. And after that, it leaned out. So yes, float height has everything to do with it. We had a guy who'd put a Weber on his MGB. I think it was on his B. And he and his son got up, drove from here to Traverse City. The plugs were all fouled out. Well, it's a Weber. Everybody can work on a Weber. The guy goes, "Oh, your float height's too high." And he, pushed it down a 16th of an inch and worked just great.
Yeah, John, it was a rear lid.
What's that?
Lid. It was the rear float lid. Rear float lid.
Okay. Oh, rear. Okay. All right.
Yeah, so the tabs will float.
Yep.
Broken.
Yep.
Lots
Got it.
cool.
Dean Hickenlooper out of Chicago says Rock Auto is having a closeout sale on N9Y spark plugs at 89 cents a piece. Rock Auto. And Pat Garrity also says they got the best NGK plug wires too. So, and the resistor plug, the N9Y plug is a RN9YC, which is renamed as the 415. This is the most common spark plug that's out there, the MGB spark plug, MGB and Midget. Midget 1275 is an N9Y, so that's a 415 plug. See, Phil, has a turbocharger ever been successfully fitted to a B series or X bag? Yes, there was somebody or is somebody in Australia who is selling turbochargers. Absolutely, yep. So those work well too. But they're not as available as the supercharger. So Pat Garrity says lots of different superchargers were available back in the day. The kit sold by Moss uses the Eaton supercharger that both Ford and GM used. I have one on my 2004 F-150 with 100,000 miles on it with no problem. It looks old. I have a Wade supercharger. So Pat Garrity has a Wade supercharger he'd like to sell that was fitted to his TC. So that's interesting. Rudy G, John, I'm in Pasadena. Hey, it's very kind. Rudy, all right. I got your number here, Rudy.
Hey, bud. Good, you bet.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in South Pasadena visiting my daughter next weekend. So
never know, get a flat breakdown, give me a call.
Right. We'll be out driving her GT. Yep. Okay, thanks. Judd, on my 72B, the right-hand blinker works, but the left doesn't blink. The light comes on, but steady. Emergency flashers work okay. So the reason that that's not working, Judd, is because there's not enough current flowing through the left-hand side. That's either because you got a faulty ground, a faulty wire connection, probably, isn't it? I've had to change bulbs sometimes. The 1157 bulb is 1156 in the back, isn't it? Sometimes those don't draw enough current. But if you change the flasher unit from the mechanical flasher unit that clicks real loud to the EL12 EL12 or the EL13, I can never remember, sold by Napa, it'll work perfectly. So, here we go. Always check your grounds, check your blinker fluid. Someone suggested that. Anyone have an Allison XR700 distributor? Can't get an advance out of this thing, but the advance hasn't got to do with the Allison. Um, um, that has to do with the distributor itself. It's probably just frozen. So if that Allison's fitted onto a 25D, you can take it apart and lube it up. But always keep in mind that when you take the distributor apart, you can put the distributor cam on 180 degrees off. Just keep that in mind. You can. So pay attention. Pay attention to the way the rotor's pointed when you take it out of the engine. Make sure when you put it back in the engine, the rotor's pointed in that same direction. Because if it's 180 out, you got to change the position of the spark plug wires or take the distributor back apart again. There, that Pat Garrity agreed with me there. Hey, we're 6-6 tonight. Should leaf springs be flat when the car is static, or should they have a curve? I think they should have a bit of a curve. Now, static or laden, you put two heavy people in the car, they're going to flatten out. So, Gerald, everybody, should they be flat or have a curve? If the car's just sitting there,
Hey, John, it's Gerard here from
Yeah,
Yardley, Pennsylvania.
they should have a curve to them.
Okay, because does that mean can they be restored, or should I just replace them?
Yes, that's a whole lot better. It's a whole lot better to get your leaf springs re-arched than to buy new.
How do I do that?
You can take them off the car. Number one, find a spring shop. Every community, larger community, has a spring shop because truck springs are going bad all the time. And I don't know, they got some great big furnace, and I don't know what they do. But we used a place here in Grand Rapids for 40 years, Grand Rapids Spring. And took them down there, they took them apart. I don't know, they heated them up. I always told them change the second leaf. And the width of the leaf is the narrowest that they'll have in their stock. They can't do T-type springs or midget springs, but they'll do B springs. Our place will. And you get them back, they don't look quite the same because they're banded with a different banding, but so what? Paint it black, you can't see it. And then they're consistent. You know that they're good.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into it. Thanks.
Okay. All right. To the person with the 53 TD in the mountains, I had the same problem with my 50 TD. And here's a Mark. Mark says he wants him to call. I hope you saw that. Mark, was Victor. Yeah, Victor. So, okay. And Barney Gaylord's site's got a lot of stuff on it. We know that. Roller rockers increase the ratio. The Dean Hickenlooper's on about this. So the roller rockers are available out of California for the T-type. There is not a roller available for an MGB, I don't believe. It's got a different kind of advance curve on it. That's one of the interesting things. Or not advance curve, I'm thinking of the distributor that's got a different opening and closing curve on it. But whether to increase the ratio, so how far does the valve open inside the cylinder head? Does it open 3/8 of an inch or does it open 1/2 an inch? Okay. That area around the valve, the area that's open is called the shroud. And you can calculate the surface area of the shroud. Obviously, the larger it opens, the more air is able to get through more quickly. You can make a case for either changing the rocker shaft and getting that 1.4 to 1 to
John, I think they come in 1.5 or 1.65.
Okay, all right. Okay,
For
so
an MGB.
Yep. So you can make a case for that. But it seems to me that when I did the calculations on that, and it may make a difference, like on a race car or something, but on a street car, it just didn't seem to make much difference. I don't have my notes in front of me about the area, the area of the shroud and the cross section and the airflow and all that kind of stuff. But
All that does raise the power band does go up higher in the RPM. So
okay, but that means then that instead of changing gears at 4,500, now you're going to change them at $6,000 or something. Most people on the street, most people don't drive like that. But anyway, yes, there's
Thanks,
a
John.
lot of stuff on the inside of the engine that you can change. Oh my gosh.
So does it make sense to go with the roller cams or not? 'Cause I thought I talked to somebody. I
Well,
thought they were
Judd
in
has
New
one.
Jersey or something.
Judd has one in his car. Len Vanelli, is that right?
I think it was Len. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, he's the guy that makes them, and they're pretty easy to install. I mean, on your car, radiator comes out. It's not easy, Front of the engine comes apart. That's not easy. But after that, it's not too bad of a job. But then you don't do it. So I'm guessing it's got to set you back $3,000, So, but
Yeah.
I don't think before you go there, I do that work with a distributor.
Yeah,
Okay,
I think you ought to do everything else first.
So should I go with a? I'm right now. I'm with the points.
Yeah,
Should
stay
I
with
go
points. Stay with
Okay.
points. Stay with points, but get the distributor out of the car and send it off to one of those two places. You're closer to Rob Medinsky, and just get the distributor rebuilt and see what difference that makes. The other thing is take the air cleaner off the car and drive it and see if that makes a difference. The air cleaner can restrict the airflow. So you always do the cheapest, easiest, simplest stuff first. So just
Okay.
take the air cleaner off. But you got to put it under load. You got to really stress it. So, and the other thing remember is to change gears at pushing 5,000 RPM. You can't climb that mountain at 2,500 RPM. The engine's got to be going faster to get the power out of it.
Okay.
Yeah. John, I just would echo what you said. I love my roller cam, but there were other reasons why I put it in.
Okay.
Victor first needs to get his car running as good as it can without it. And then if he wants to add that, that's an addition. But
Bingo.
it sounds to me like it's bogging down for some reason. Maybe he's not RPMing it enough. Who knows? But anyway,
Yep.
I'm through. Thanks.
Yep.
I mean, I don't try to keep it up to 5,000, right?
That's
maybe
that's where the power
that's my issue.
That's
right?
where the power is.
I usually
Don't
shift
ever
that
get
up
below
about
3.
3,500, 4,000.
No.
So
You're
anyway,
not getting anything.
so but anyway, that's yeah. Well, you guys got each other's numbers, I think, or one of you does. So okay, let's see, Wes, you mentioned only one damper shouldn't be vented. Did I hear that correct? Okay, Wes, everybody else, the SU carburetors, the damper has to be vented. It has to have one hole. It can't have none, and it can't have two. How could it have two? Because the early MGAs had dustless carburetors. They had vented suction chambers. And so if you've got a hole in the air piston on top, on the damper on top, and you've got a hole into from the damper into the inside of the suction chamber, then air is going to go through that, and the air piston is going to sit lower than it should, and the car is going to run rich.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sean.
But those suction chambers are all the same. I mean, from 1956 through 1974, they all look the same. They all have a little boss on the side at the top, and it just when I'm doing a tune-up on a car I don't know, any car, I always look at that and just make sure there's not a hole drilled through there. So just as long as there's a hole in the damper. So, okay. and Pat Garrity, Wade, thanks, Pat, for writing all this stuff on here. You and I think a lot the same. Okay, how do I adjust a choke cable on an MGB running HS2 fours probably? Got it hooked up but can't pull it out. So Mr. Curl. So you've got a new choke cable. If the choke cable's too long, then the whole cable binds up instead of stuff moving. The choke cable on an MGB, it doesn't say what year. Oh, HS, okay. The choke cable comes from underneath, and the inner cable's fixed at the top, fixed. So when you pull the cable, I mean, how can you pull the cable? Because the it's fixed. The inner cable's fixed. How does this even work? Well, it does. And the outer cable moves instead, and that lifts and rotates the choke assembly. Make sure you can rotate the choke assembly by hand. There should be no springs, no expansion springs strung between the heat shield and the chokes. Sometimes because there's a hole there and it looks like it takes springs, you can put springs on there, and then it's nigh impossible to pull the knob out of the dash. So those are a couple of comments. We're getting right down to it here. Victor says I'd considered electronic ignition. I have points right now. Yeah, just keep points. That's it. Dave Quinn. I have a trickle drain on the battery that is causing it to die. Per Barney's site steps, it's the horn circuit, but I cannot find the source. Everything seems proper. Any thoughts? Yes. Disconnect one lead from the battery. Put a test light between the lead and the battery. A test light. If it glows, oh my gosh, your battery's going to go dead in 3 or 4 days. If there's not enough current coming out of the battery to light a test light, then use an ammeter on the milliamp scale and start disconnecting stuff until the meter changes, and then you'll know right where that leak is. But if it's an original MGA, I mean, you've got a battery, if you got a radio in there, radios have memories.
No radio.
Good.
No radio, John.
So, but that's the way to find it is to put a meter between the battery and the cable, and then
So you're saying you go back and repeat that a second. You're saying disconnect the battery.
Disconnect one lead off the battery, put an ammeter, a milliammeter between the battery and the cable, and it'll read something. It'll read something. If a milliamp meter doesn't do it, then the battery is self-discharging, which they do. They just self-discharge. They get a leak on. I don't know what happens physically. I don't know what happens on the inside, but they go dead. And and then if you got some sort of draw, then it's going to show up as a certain amount of milliamps, and you take the horn fuse out. Take the other fuse out, disconnect the generator, disconnect the control box. After that, I don't know what else to connect.
Yeah.
But just keep going, place by place.
What I was getting was a 0.2 volts when I did Barney's test, where I go from the A terminal to the small brown wire on the control box.
Yeah, I would go. I put your meter between the battery and the battery cable, so because it's drawing energy out of the battery, and start disconnecting stuff until whatever, did that make a difference? Did that make a difference? Did that make a difference? And then when you find what it is, then either replace it or call me or something, right?
All right, thanks. Great show.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Is that Pat Garrity says, don't overlook the relay, but there are no relays in the A that are live when the key is on. Here we got the horn switch might say have some corrosion. Anything, anything's possible. So you've got another way to tell how to do it there. What number can I contact me on? My phone number, if you want to get your pencil out, Victor, is 616. First of all, it's on my website, on the universitymotors.online website, but it's excuse me, 616 307 6737. Don't call tonight. Call tomorrow. Okay. All right. All right. How do I adjust a choke cable on an MGB? Oh, I already got that one. Hey, I'm down to the end and it's 9:42. So this is pretty intense. It was a busy night
John,
tonight between all
John,
the. Yes.
when you put the test light between the battery and the cable, does it matter if you have positive or negative?
No, neither. Nor does it make any difference what cable you take off. Usually you take off the ground cable, but it really doesn't make any difference.
Yeah,
And
that's
if-
what I thought. Because I have
Yeah.
a drain on mine, and everything I've been reading about it online said use the negative cable, but I didn't
it doesn't.
really know why it would matter.
No, it's stupid. It's just that we're not dealing with the electronics here. We're dealing with electrics. So
Okay, thank you.
Just make sure you use an incandescent bulb, not a LED.
well, the LED, yeah, the incandescent bulb will light up at lower voltage.
Yeah, that's
But
what I
like-
have.
It doesn't
Steve-
care about polarity.
What year do you have, Steve?
It's an 80.
Oh yeah, that's okay. So on that one, if you put it, does the battery go dead in 3 days?
I parked at the beginning of October when I hurt myself, and I went to start it last night, and the battery it had 1.2 volts in it. So,
Stone
and I
dead.
don't think
All right. Okay.
I don't
most
really know.
Okay, the most common thing is the trunk light stays on. How would you even know the trunk
No.
light? How
I
would
don't
you
have
know?
a trunk light. I have the light, the fixture, but there's no bulb in it because it never
All
turns
right.
off.
So once it's all charged up, take one of the cables off, negative cable, put the test
Right.
light, incandescent test light between them. Light comes on, start popping fuses out, 1, 2, 3, 4. When you get to the and then disconnect the alternator also. One of those popping out the bottom fuse or popping out or disconnecting the alternator will probably find your problem.
Okay.
Probably. But
All right.
there's some weird stuff. You got an anti-run-on valve there that's got a oil pressure switch.
Yeah, I heard that earlier, and I
that
wasn't sure about that.
that is normally open. Most oil pressure switches are normally closed. So if someone changed that for some reason and they put the wrong one in there, then it's a constant drain, and the anti-run-on valve is hot all the literally physically to the touch hot. I had one guy in Rockford, Illinois, whose car started on fire because it got too hot. He was a fire inspector. Get this. The guy's a fire inspector. His MGB catches on fire, and he's able to walk it back through his expertise, in fire pathology, and just determined it was the anti-run-on valve. That was pretty good. Anyway,
Cool. All right, thanks, John.
Yeah, you're welcome. So
just one other thing about the electrics and the charging. I have a 72B with a 76 engine and alternator.
Okay.
When I got the car, there were two plugs. One, the two side by side and one offset. And the one that goes into the alternator with three. And I realized that it wasn't charging so much. The battery was going dead after 2 days. And I looked at the plug and there's only two wires coming from it. So you got to replace, it takes two wires to go to the starter and or the battery to properly take the energy out of that alternator. Now I'm getting 14 volts.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Sorry, just didn't want to take your last
okay.
minute.
That's okay. Thanks. Yeah, there's it's so great on the early alternator. The first alternator, the 68 had a remote regulator, And so it had a great big black wire to ground it, as though grounding it to the case, and the case to the engine wouldn't be ground enough, but it had a great big black wire on it, ground wire. And then the next year, 69, they put the regulator inside and had two plugs. So two plugs in Lucas is called type 1 termination. Then later, they changed to a single plug. And in Lucas parlance, that's type 2 termination. It's like backwards. Anyway, that was then, this is now, and your car works. So we're past my hard stop, but we got all the chat section done. Any other comments? Any other quick questions?
Thank you, John. You're the bomb.
Thanks a lot, John. Thank you.
Agreed.
Doug Clark isn't on tonight, is he?
Thank you.
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
Hey, John.
Oh,
what's a good time to call you tomorrow?
Between 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good time.
Is that Central or Eastern?
Eastern.
That's Eastern, same as you. And if I can't answer, I'll call you back.
Okay, no problem.
Right.
Gotta hand it to John for giving out his phone number to 200 plus people.
Yeah.
219 tonight.
I used to put the invitation on our Facebook page to this Zoom, but then before Marty was on board, we got Zoom bombed. Yeah, that was fun. Guido's Battellini from New Jersey. His wife saved me from that, because there's nothing I could do but end the Zoom meeting. It started off kind of weird, and then it got really rude, rude and obscene. So it's fun to look back on now, but it was embarrassing at the time. And anyway, so then I opened up the Zoom right again, and however it was getting Zoom bombed, and they were gone, and we continued on with the session. But since then, I haven't put the invitation on YouTube because of all those bots.
Or Facebook, yeah.
That are out there on Facebook. That's what I meant. Searching around to cause trouble. Anyway, yeah. Well, you can call me during the day. You know that and my phone number's on the website. And just in closing, we got 67 people left. If you haven't gone to the website yet and pressed the PayPal button, think about doing that. That'd be very kind. So.
Are we on for December 16th?
No, thank you. I'm all set. I'm all set for the 16th. I'm all set for it. And all of a sudden, I looked at my calendar, and I am flying back into Grand Rapids that night. I get in at 11 o'clock from Los Angeles. So no, I don't know whether maybe we'll bump it a day. Maybe we'll do it like on the 17th. Doing it on the 23rd is like, maybe we'll do it then. I don't know. It's the 2 nights before Christmas. The night
Or the 30th.
2
nights before New Year's better than 2 nights before Christmas.
One of those. Marty and I'll talk about it and come up with it. But I had told everybody it was going to be on the 16th, but it ain't going to be. So we either got to jockey around the day or the date. So.
Are you around Virginia anytime soon?
I haven't got a plan yet. I've got a car that I've got a couple cars in my shop I got to get done. I got one long-term project beyond long-term that I've got to get done. When that's done, and maybe by the end of the summer, all that stuff will be done, and then I'll do my East Coast tour. And I visit a couple of clubs along the way. There's I don't know where, I think this past year was the last time that the Washington, D.C. MG Car Club chapter was doing the Hunt Country Classic in a particular spot. I think that this is their last year, so they'll find a new venue for that. So, and that's like the first or second weekend in October. But I'll be down through there, but I'll have it posted. I'll have it posted in these constant contact things that I send out. It'll be on the website, stuff like
So
that.
I know you're in Pennsylvania at some point.
I'm in Altoona, PA. I'm in Altoona, PA the week, the weekend before Labor Day. So
August.
Altoona,
Actually, I think it's the 22nd, 23rd, 24th that this year.
yeah, Jim's the boss man there.
What 22nd, 23rd of what?
August.
August.
Next year.
Okay. Maybe I'll hit it up.
Well, anything's possible. So so if you can drive all the way from Virginia well, if Jim, you're about an hour away from Hagerstown?
Yeah, it's an easy drive.
Yeah, I'm not taking my car up there, but I may take my other car up there.
Oh, I thought you wanted me to tune it. And I'm thinking if you can
Well, maybe.
if you can
I
get
don't
from
know.
Virginia to Altoona, PA,
Yeah.
I don't need to do any tuning, You pass the test, on the way in. So, oh, I'm so upset Doug Clark is not here. I was gonna beat his ass tonight with I have the greatest, I just have the greatest. Nobody can tell him. Dean Hickenlooper, if you're still on, you can't tell him, but I got my a gas mask. So that just kills any headgear that he's going to have. Now somebody's going to tell him, and he'll be able to come up against me. But anyway, it is all but 10 o'clock, and it's a 3-hour seminar tonight. So it's a good time. We had a lot of people on tonight, a lot more than usual. So thank you for those of you who have suffered through all of this. We're down to 57 people, not including me and Marty. That makes it 59, I guess, or maybe Marty's 58. But anyway, I want to say good night to everybody, and we'll let you know when we're going to have the next one. If you have any questions, call me. I'm more than happy to take your calls, and I look forward to God, it was like 22 degrees Fahrenheit today. Oh my gosh. It's horribly cold.
108 days till spring.
Oh, right. But even then, it doesn't. I mean, that's the 22nd of March. It doesn't get warm. You got to wait another
It
month.
usually snows.
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, John, thanks for your patience tonight.
Hey.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Hey, have a good trip out here.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's
So-
still fall for another almost month. So.
No, we got our first snow.
Yeah, we got our first snow just the other day.
Probably snows in April.
Nice
It does.
Thanksgiving snow. In my house, I got, I don't know, 2 inches. What'd you get up at yours, Marty? 2?
No, yeah,
Yep.
enough
And
that
then-
it's 2 to 3.
And then
Each
my girlfriend lives 12 miles to my west, just 12 miles, just on the other side of Grand Rapids. And she's got like a dozen inches because she gets lake effect snow. So it's even that cold air picks up a lot of moisture coming across that lake. So
an hour or two east of Cleveland, they got over 4.5 feet of snow, and it's still coming down.
Yeah.
And Buffalo's even worse.
Yeah.
Whenever it snows in Cleveland, I think I'm glad I don't live in Buffalo.
Oh my gosh, back in the day when there was a newspaper, every year there'd be some guy standing out with his hand on top of a fire plug, right? And then they'd say, no, that he's not holding on to the fire plug. That's the top of a telephone pole. That was in Buffalo. Oh my gosh.
My daughter wants to move to Aruba.
Or Aruba.
80 degrees in Fort Lauderdale today.
Who is?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
80 degrees Fort Lauderdale, David Massey.
Oh, okay. Hey, nice.
Gonna be low's gonna be 55 overnight. Brr. That's cold for us.
What's
Well,
your
some of us
temperature?
have to suffer.
What's the temperature in the mountains there, Jim?
It is very, very cold, like 21 degrees. Yeah.
Same as it is here. Oh my God.
And I've got to sit at a football game on Thursday for my
Yeah,
granddaughter.
we're
Yeah, well,
26.
hey, you gotta
We're in the
do,
lowlands.
you gotta do what you gotta do. So, okay.
Yeah, it's cold here.
70 degrees in Pasadena.
Yeah, I'm gonna be there in a week and a half, Pat, Ron. So, yeah.
Smart ass.
Yeah, right. Okie doke. Well, everybody, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Good night.
Thank
Hey.
you. See you, John.
Okay, good
Have a
night.
good
Good night,
evening.
John.
Good night, John.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,